Welcome to Wickedshizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. Well, hey there again. So glad you could join me for episode 3 of Thoughts on News, and this is brought to you by Wickedshizuku. So, I'm going to try to, not sure if I'll be able to carry through. I'll try though, even though Master Yoda says there is no try, there is only do. I'm going to try to bring you thoughts on news, maybe Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or on Sundays maybe. Not sure. It really depends on how busy the news week is and how rampant my thoughts are running. So we shall run to the little breakdown of what I have for today. I have 15 or 16 clips again. There's a couple of podcasts or a couple of clips from podcasts that I'm also going to cover as well, that I thought that, maybe some people just don't have these people on their radar at all. The algorithms make sure that, there might be some people that I haven't even heard of when it comes to this. So what we are going to do is we are going to run through these clips, and we shall see what got up today. Okay. And the one that I have a Timcast clip set up first, and this one is titled "Insane Videos Show Mobs Attack Cars, Loot Merch as Society Crumbles Amid Mass Crime Waves." So this clip that he is reviewing comes from Philly. So I have never been to Philadelphia. I have not, or Pennsylvania. It's on my bucket list. I want to go. I want to go and be able to tour through everything that was from, or I want to do a thorough tour of New England one day and be able to go to all of the colonial sites and whatnot. I want to go to Independence Hall for sure. That's definitely on my bucket list. I mean, Independence Hall is one of them. I also want to visit Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, and Montpelier, James Madison's home, and possibly George Washington's home. I'm not sure if any of those have, those tours, how much they actually cost or anything, because, you're speaking to a little Alabamian resident that, hasn't been able to work outside of, my own talents, which is writing and everything. And like I said in the last episode, I don't send all of my work everywhere for, like I said, for editors to sniff at. I already know that a good portion of my work will get turned down because of my conservative values, because of the conservative themes that run heavily throughout all of my writing. So that's it. I'm not going to be sitting here trying to struggle and share all of my work just for constant rejection. And any writer out there knows When you get the rejection letter, all you want to do is just wallow in your misery because you're not good enough. And I found out a long time ago that they were playing the game of the liberal hive mind then, and that they didn't want conservative voices at all. So if we could get some more publishing houses other than Skyhorse Press to publish conservative writers, that would really be nice. Reach out. I'm ready. So there is that. But we'll get to it and stop my yakking for now. And let me check the speed. Okay. Yes, so if you want to complain about me having it on ×2 and then subsequently it turning into a ×4 on you and you don't understand what the hell's going on, well, I'm sorry. Like I said, you are baby tomatoes and will be turned into ketchup. So, let's carry on and we shall get to Timcast. I believe this is one of his solo clips. I'm not sure. It might be part of the podcast from a few days ago, but he likes to do solo stuff, which is, in my opinion, much better when he doesn't have to stop. And here we go.
Viral video. A mob of teens jump up and down on cars, screaming and kicking them, while the man filming says that you guys are gonna get shot. It's really amazing. I'll play it for you. There's not much audio other than people just screaming and running about. And we have James Woods saying this is unfixable. They got me thinking about a bunch of things pertaining to social order breakdown, as well as racism and things like that. This is in Philadelphia. And as you can see, there's just a mob of teenagers. They appear to be, I don't know, it looks like they're all black teenagers, and they're just jumping up and attacking random cars. That's the video, for the most part. But there are a lot of videos like this. And many people on the left have said that it is a lie, it is a manipulation, that people keep posting videos like this to imply something going on. I don't know if these videos are unique to now. I don't know if things like this happen all the time. I've certainly had my experiences, and this isn't the only video. Here's, so this is the same video. This is from Catch Up Feed. It's not Catch Up, it's Catch Up. That's one. But here's one as well. Fans of Lil Durk stole thousands of dollars in merchandise after someone called in a false active shooter report at his concert in Chicago on Saturday. People stealing merch during concert active shooting. Here we go. Don't really think you need the audio. It's just people screaming, running around, and just stealing things. Well, not everybody in this video is black. Many people in the other video is black. And we keep seeing people post videos like this. I don't know the argument, I suppose, that it's racist to post these videos. You end up with people making Scott Adams meme. Because Scott Adams had that incident where he said white people should get away from black people. I think that's silly. I think it's dumb. I think you should stay away from criminals. But seeing this, seeing many stories like this, got me thinking this person's clearly not black. You got me thinking about social order breakdown and what could lead to active civil unrest. Let me tell you a story. As a kid, my family went to go see, I think we went to go see Fade. Could be wrong. I think it was Fade. It was at Ford City Mall in the south side of Chicago. It's actually a southwest suburb, I think. I don't know what the suburb is, because I think Ford City's in Chicago. But the power went out. When the power went out, my family was like, we gotta leave. And sure enough, as we were leaving, the whole mall lost power. And what did we see? Everybody was just running around and stealing whatever they could see. That's it. We didn't. My family just quickly got in the car and GTFO. But I've experienced things like this. I bring that up just to say, dude, this stuff is always right? And this area, like where I'm in the southwest suburbs, it's like generally mixed race. There's white people, black people, Latino people. I think it's mostly like Latino and white, with some like Polish migrants, Polish immigrants, and of course black people. But the people who are living stealing came from all different backgrounds. I think my experience growing up in that place is why I'm not a big fan of these racist narratives. You see these videos, which tend to be mostly black teens doing these things. It could be cultural. It has nothing to do with race. It's just people in these areas engaged in these flash mobs. But of course you've seen rioting and looting from all sorts of different backgrounds. And this is one of the points I want to make before we get into the talk about social order breakdown. Antifa's mostly white, and they go to black neighborhoods and smash and destroy things. So I think that's important to point out. When we're sharing these videos, people can say like, oh, it's so racist they're sharing these videos or whatever because it shows black teens doing this. And I'm like, no, many of these people also share Antifa, which is mobs of white people going around doing much the same thing. However, I do think racists certainly do post these videos and then act like all of this stuff is it's an issue of race. I'm just like, dude, I'm old enough to remember when those two white women in Antifa were vandalizing a black neighborhood and two black women were like, stop destroying our neighborhood. I'm also old enough to remember when you had that, I can't remember what shooting it was. There was rioting going on, and one of the family members of the victim said, why are you doing this in our neighborhood? They're white people's neighborhood. Racial animosity exists, it certainly does. But outside of all of that stuff, let's talk about, I guess the issue of social order breakdown. You look at this video. In Chicago, people are looting, they're stealing because someone called in a shooting threat. As soon as social order breaks down, this is what happens. In Philadelphia, seemingly for no reason, these kids are attacking vehicles. Look at this. They just run up, jump on this car. There's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no social order. The dude filming the video keeps saying you're gonna get shot. So what happens when they do? What happens when there's a guy who lives in a neighborhood? The Plastic's, remember them? Black Lives Matter riders break down the gates to their private neighborhood. They come out with guns. They the criminal charge. What happens when people say the government's illegitimate because the government is supporting crime and reckless destruction from various mob groups, flash mobs, or otherwise? What happens when someone just says, hey, if someone you don't know shows up to our neighborhood, here's the text group. Let us know. We're taking things into our own hands. I'm not talking about crime. I'm talking about just strangers in general. So when I see this stuff, and I see people jumping on the car like this, how long until you think someone just slams the gas? We already saw this stuff at Summer of Love. All these far-left extremists were attacking cars, and a few of these cars sped through. I think it was in the Pacific Northwest, like Seattle or Portland, where BLM activists all stood on a highway. And when they started attacking the car sped forward and slammed into a bunch of them. The person who drove that vehicle, I think they didn't get charged in the car. There's video footage of fortunate. When we talk about, oh, look, right here on the right, Civil War and Tim Pool training.
Recording.
When we talk about Civil War, people assume it must be Democrats marching down the streets towards Republicans because these people are not smart. You know, Civil War can erupt when various factions start asserting authority over themselves and their jurisdictions. The federal government is forced to intervene. Let's say there's a scenario where a flash mob attacks a random neighborhood for no reason. Locals who live there have formed a local militia group. You know, militia typically refer to like the locals who would take up arms and had some kind of organization. Let's say neighborhood watch, and they're armed. And a bunch of people are running through throwing bricks, lighting fires. So these guys go out with guns, and then some of these people in the crowd start attacking the people with the guns. What happens when these locals open fire, like the Roof Koreans did 30 years ago? Someone gets shot. Then the police say, we're coming in to arrest you. You're going to be arrested. Right now, something like that would happen. I imagine the neighborhood watch individuals would surrender. They'd say, okay, I guess. Ahmed Arbery is a really good example of this. A guy was terrorizing their neighborhood. They had evidence that he was. The police were looking for him. He's on camera committing a burglary. This has all been reported. I'm saying purportedly, because all of these things. And they were told not to intervene. They shouldn't have, but McMichael's chase after him. And then when Ahmed Arbery runs around their vehicle and attacks Travis McMichael fighting for the shotgun, again, I'm not saying it's justified or not. I mean, if someone was surrounding me and I'm shotgun, I might want to defend myself too. Like, what's going on? Ahmed Arbery dies. These guys go to prison. At a certain point, you're going to have people who say, there's no sense in calling the police because they are against you, not with you. That if you try to defend yourself, you'll get arrested. We've already seen it. How many people have been arrested for defending themselves? So at what point do you get a group of people who say, I'm going to defend myself and my community, and we're not going to involve law enforcement? These riotous, this riotous mob fights, you end up with people getting injured or dead, and then the government tries coming in to intervene. The neighborhood watch says, we don't cooperate with you, you have no authority here. You've never protected us, you've never defended us, and you're only causing problems. What happens when people feel that the federal government becomes weak, is incapable of actually stopping this? If you can't stop this, why should anyone believe you can stop them? Get the point? That's the social breakdown. Right now, the assumption is that if you're a criminal, you get away with it, not because the government can't stop you, because they want you to do it. That means if you defend yourself, the government will stop you. What happens when various communities start to believe the government is incapable of enforcing law? In which case, they must take them off their own hands. You end up with flash mob fighting in violence, and the locals shoot and kill some of the people perpetrating this political extremism. The federal government may then.
All right. So while I do support police, and I'm very against this defunding of the police idea, I will say that some of the southern states are completely out of line and going too far, using FBI training in order to be able to carry out their duties, such as using cell phone towers to spy on people without a warrant. That's a break of the Fourth Amendment right there. If you ever go to jail, file for discovery. Okay? Tell your lawyer you want discovery, that you want discovery on how they brought you in. Okay, whether it's a drug deal, whether it is anything. Okay? Because they're using that illegal tactic right there. There's many tactics that the police will use. They will use predictive policing in order to be able to get someone that they don't like in a neighborhood and push them out by always harassing them. This has been done in Florida for sure. It's online. It's out there. You can see it. But if people think that Florida's laws are bad, come on up to the neighbor in Alabama. Because you miss a court date, you're going to jail for a failure to appear. And it doesn't matter if it's a civil case. It doesn't matter if it's a criminal case. If you waste that judge's time, you are getting a failure to appear. Doesn't matter if you are the plaintiff or the defendant. And trying to get out of jury duty, now that's kind of easy. You say you're a student, or you say that you're a mother breastfeeding, or that you were pregnant and you can't show up for jury duty, you can get out of it that way. Women can, anyhow.
And try to come in, but with no confidence or support, they get chased out, bricks thrown on them, and they leave. And that's it. When those things start to happen is when you get this breakdown of law and order and offensive civil war. But I'll put it this way. The last thing I'll say, good leftist friends. I love the idea that these people are screaming Donald Trump is Hitler, who's staged a military coup, failed, and is now trying to bring about another attempt at seizing power of government. That fascists lurk around every corner. Vox.com says there's something like 14 million white supremacist white nationalists in this country. And then if we don't stop them now, we will become like Nazi Germany. And then they go, but there's no civil war. Laughable. Sure. So I'll leave it there. Next time it's coming up at 4 p.m. on the channel. Thanks very much. I'm see you.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life.
Welcome back. Good Friday, everybody. I'm Mark Romo. Thanks for being here. It's Friday, August 18th, and it is 7 a.m. on the East Coast. Time for the hot topic of the hour. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan has subpoenaed the Justice Department and the FBI for documents showing conversations between the agency's private companies and other third-party groups alleged showing big tech collusion. In a letter to AG Merrick Garland, Jordan writes this: numerous documents that have been made publicly available reflect the weaponization of the federal government's power to censor speech online, directly and by proxy. It is necessary for Congress to gauge the extent to which DOJ officials have coerced, pressured, turn over response documents next month. Daniel, we know what happened here because of the release of the Twitter files. We were told 1,000 people in government were working with Twitter and other social media companies to tell them what was true and what wasn't true. Turns out that they were telling the social media companies to suppress information about the Biden laptop. It was all lies because the Biden laptop was real and authentic. And of course, a treasure trove of information about influence peddling of the Biden family.
They intentionally were deceitful in communicating what was actually happening. No, in the end, it's deliberate and aggressively so to censor. The principle at play here, Maria, more than anything, is that when you diminish one voice, you're enhancing another voice. And whose voices are you enhancing? It was that of the government over that of individual Americans concerned about their safety, concerned about what was happening to each one of them, their neighbors, and the community that they live in. It is a direct violation of our First Amendment, and good on Congressman Jim Jordan for taking this on and making sure that these folks are held accountable so that this does not happen again. We don't have to repeat this violation.
Yeah, Chairman Jim Jordan is also subpoenaing Citibank for documents for the House Judiciary Weaponization Select Committee's investigation into the major banks sharing American private financial data with the FBI without legal process transactions. In a letter to the CEO of Citigroup, Jordan writes that the documents show the bank, quote, may have shared customer information with federal law enforcement despite the customers having no individual nexus to criminal conduct. Jordan also says that the documents reveal a Citibank representative was included on emails and Zoom discussions organized by the FBI, Francis. This is just incredible. This is what happened over the January 6th situation as well. You had Congress wanting, going directly to places like AT&T, telecom companies, wanting information on lawmakers. They just go right to the companies, demand information, and apparently Jim Jordan writing to Citigroup alleging that Citi gave it up. Yeah, what country are we living in? This is so insane. I can remember thinking to myself after January 6th, oh, thank goodness I wasn't in D.C. That just, coincidentally at that time, because I realized that credit card statements and debit cards, we have no privacy anymore. I mean, the technology makes that, very difficult. But these, I wouldn't do business with Citi for doing this. I would never have an account there. And I think Americans are starting to really have.
Now that's interesting. Yeah, I thought the exact same thing after the 6th. I thought the exact same thing. And then for them to start going over bank records and whatnot. I mean, this is not what our government is supposed to do. Anyone who had these particular credit cards, whatnot, anyone that has been targeted by the DOJ and whatnot, y'all need to get together and start a class action lawsuit against the government. How about that? Either that or your banks for giving up those records, because that's unlawful. They have to have your permission for that shit.
I have a lot of distrust in these different corporations. I've never downloaded the TikTok app. It's just because we have to at some point just say, okay,
same here. Never had a TikTok.
Privacy and completely unnecessarily. It's just so egregious. And I think Jordan's saying that the DOJ has only thus far presented one document. Oh my goodness. I mean, the hubris continues. I really think there should be a poll on hubris for candidates and just see. It's just so nuts. It's outrageous. It's outrageous, and it is a complete violation of our liberties. I totally agree. We're gonna keep a spotlight on it for sure.
I love when families and friends get together to have a good time.
We're back with
Everybody, Peter Zhang here coming to you from Colorado.
Zayhan.
And today we're going to talk about the new investment restrictions on Chinese tech. Specifically, last week, the Biden administration put a number of investment bars on private equity firms and venture capital firms in order to constrain capital flows to the Chinese tech space, specifically anything that might have a military application or involving artificial intelligence. And they made it pretty clear that this is only the first of a series of restrictions that will get steadily deeper and wider as we move forward. Now, this is crazy important, although probably not immediately for the reasons that seem obvious. China's problem isn't money. The Chinese basically limit investment options, prevent money from flowing abroad, prevent it from even to a certain degree in the stock markets, in order to super saturate the capital environment for Chinese firms, such as state-owned firms. Basically, they use this captured capital to throw a bottomless supply of capital, whatever industry they think needs to have it. That's how they maintain full employment, that's how they build all these roads, that's how they've had explosive growth for the last 30 years. It's investment-driven, not necessarily smart investment-driven. Chinese returns on capital are some of the worst in the world. A lot of the more recent data that's come out in the last 3 years, COVID for sure, but suggests a lot of that rate of return might be negative. That's not good. Anyway, bottom line is, if the Chinese want to throw a lot of money at AI, they can do that without any help from the outside. For those of you who have a hard time kind of wrapping your mind around that, think of it this way. We know, talking to Bitcoiners and gold bugs and all the fiscal conservatives, we know that the U.S. government spends too much money. That's obvious. And one of the many ways that the United States tries to square that circle is it expands the money supply. It prints currency to buy up government debt to keep it off the market and keep the whole thing from going wobbly. Well, take a look here at the money supply for the big four companies. You'll notice that the Chinese surpassed us a long time ago, and the Chinese money supply is now roughly double that of the United States. In fact, the U.S. money supply has been shrinking for the last year. In the case of China, it is not significantly traded internationally, and most of what is traded internationally is done so in Hong Kong. So, this is all domestic. So everything that all the people say about the U.S. Federal Reserve doing things wrong, there may be some truth to that, but it's an order of magnitude worse than the People's Republic. Anyway, bottom line, China, money is not the problem. The problem is what's next. The reason that the Chinese really like American venture capital, and especially private equity, is it opens doors. It gives access to American firms and ultimately the American market. The Chinese are not doing a huge amount of cutting-edge technical development. They don't have it. They certainly don't have a workforce to take any unique ideas they have and transfer it into a manufacturing system. They need the Americans for that. And what the Biden administration is doing is basically slamming that door in their face, saying that you can do this yourself if you can, that's fine. But you're not going to be able to have American capital, above all, American know-how and connections in order to then displace Americans in the wider market. Now, you can make the argument that it should have been done 10, 20 years ago. There's a fair argument to be made. But what we're seeing is only the most recent and increasingly strict series of restrictions by this administration on all things Chinese. The Chinese, with over $1 trillion of subsidies, still haven't been able to move into mid to high-end semiconductors. Now they never can. In fact, it's an open question with these sort of restrictions where they can hold the place where they are right now, because now a lot of the doors that allow them to operationalize things are simply closed. And this still, a year into the Biden administration's tech sanctions on the Chinese, this is still just the beginning. Remember that at the end of the day, the U.S. consumer market is over triple the size of that of the Chinese. Without that, they don't have the flows necessary to maintain their employment system, much less the tech system. And now at the top, they're going to have a really hard time moving forward, because when it comes to the tech sanctions, the Japanese, the Dutch, and the Brits are already on board. They are by far the three most important. The Taiwanese and the Koreans are basically in the process of crossing CTs and batting some eyes and will come along as well. And that's it. That's all of it. That's all I got. You guys take care.
Oh, hold on.
I've had like people retroactively tell me you.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I saw this and I found it kind of interesting because, like I said, I don't follow celebrities often, but I do remember this guy when he was on that '70s show. So, it was like, oh, okay, I remember this guy. He married Bruce Willis's ex-wife, Demi Moore. So, I don't know how that's going, but I do remember the scandal of it. And, I remember finding this guy pretty funny. But, since the Sound of Freedom is so big right now, I thought it might be prudent to watch kind of this little mini doc on him to see what they put him through, because if you've been listening to the Roseanne Barr podcast or whatnot, you will know that Hollywood has been corrupted for ever since the times of Shirley Temple and Dorothy Gale of Wizard of Oz. Everyone knows that Hollywood is corrupt. Why haven't we done anything about it? We keep putting our money towards it. Did y'all ever think about that? Actually go and buy some penny stocks of all of these things like Disney or Universal or Warner Brothers or any of the other media companies that are out there? It's called stocks, everyone. Penny stocks. Buy a few of the cheaper end penny stocks of all of these media companies. I mean, like I said, I'm a piss poor peon, can't do anything. But what I would do if I had $1 million, I'd go and buy up a lot of coal stock. I'd go and buy a lot of gas stock for oil and gas. Energy. And then wait until a more favorable time that all of those stocks are going to just skyrocket in 4 years. That's exactly what George Soros did when he bankrupted the coal industry. Peabody Coal. Anybody? So that's what I would do. If I was a grandmother out there and I had expendable income, I would not be putting money on people's subscriptions. I would not be doing it for GoFundMe's. I would not be doing that. I would be buying small penny stocks in order to be able to go to these companies and say, I don't agree, and I am a stockholder. Because with those stockholder meetings, that's where things get done. And the reason that a good portion of all of the DEI and ESG shit has taken over from the World Economic Forum is because people let go of their stocks and they let bigger and bigger whales out there buy up the majority of it. And then you see that the company crashes and they sell it off into pieces. It's kind of like that Richard Gere and Julia Roberts movie, Pretty Woman. That's what the guy did for a living. Richard Gere's character, he bought companies, he broke them up into smaller pieces, and he sold them. He would put businesses out of business. So, I suppose, the little lesson from the Hollywood stuff is just, try to get involved through the stock market and becoming a shareholder, and to be able to put your opinion forth that you do not agree with this, and that you hold the company CEOs and chief financial officers and the executives, hold them accountable through the company. It's just a different form of government, everyone. We have two coinciding governments in this country. One is actual government. The other one is corporate. And they both are going the same way, steamrolling ahead. So, on to Ashton Kutcher's story and how he recalls his biggest mistake against Hollywood elites.
You know, it's funny, like, when you have that kind of a run of success, it's hard to, like, self-regulate, you know, when you're that young, to fight human trafficking with exploitation. So that's our core mission. Like, I've seen video content of a child the same age as mine, being by an American man who was a choice in Cambodia.
It's no secret that Hollywood can be a world of smoke and mirrors, where power and influence often operate behind closed doors. In this gripping account, Ashton reveals a pivotal moment that exposed him to the true nature of the Hollywood elites. So what was the colossal mistake that Ashton recalled making against the powerful Hollywood elites? How did this experience transform him and shape his future choices in the industry? Prepare for an eye-opening journey that will leave you questioning the true price of success and the sacrifices often demanded behind the silver screen. Throughout his career, Ashton has charmed audiences with his wit and talent, but behind the scenes, he discovered a world filled with glittering opportunities and hidden dangers. Influential Hollywood elites surrounded Ashton as he climbed the ladder of fame and fortune.
Just go home and just try it. You're gonna get like mind bonkers how
Parties, events, and high-profile gatherings became a regular part of his life. But during one such occasion, he learned the reality of the Hollywood elites hidden behind the curtain. Recently, the internet has been buzzing with revelations about the unsettling reality behind the scenes in Hollywood. Reports about hidden dark acts and secret parties have emerged, raising concerns about the industry's safety. Among the brave sources shedding light on these disturbing undertakings is the A-list actor Ashton Kutcher, who openly warns the influential figures behind these practices that they will be exposed for their involvement in sexual abuse and trafficking. Ashton Kutcher's courageous statements serve as a stern warning to the influential individuals in Hollywood who have managed to evade accountability.
It's time to get happy.
starting at the top.
Do you know what happens if you pour sugar into a carved out onion? Take a glass container with a lid and place the sliced onion.
Ability thus far. There is a growing belief that these powerful moguls have cultivated an environment where dark secrets thrive, known to many but hidden from public view.
The right to pursue happiness for so many is stripped away. It's raped. It's abused. It's taken by force, fraud, or coercion. It is sold for the momentary happiness.
Despite its reputation, Hollywood has often resisted addressing these issues, with silence and fear prevailing. The Harvey Weinstein case is a stark example where his actions remained undisclosed for years until the truth finally surfaced. Over 70 women, including Gwyneth Paltrow, Rose McGowan, and Angelina Jolie, have accused the former studio head of sexual harassment or assault. The allegations led to Weinstein's dismissal from his company and expulsion from the Television Academy. Furthermore, his wife, Marquesa designer Georgina Chapman, announced her decision to leave him after a 10-year marriage. Although Weinstein has consistently denied all allegations of rape, he briefly sought treatment at a center before leaving after just 1 week, as confirmed by Us Weekly on October 20th, 2017. On May 25th, 2018, Weinstein turned himself into the authorities to face charges involving actress Lucia Evans and another unidentified woman. While he pleaded not guilty to felony rape charges, the disgraced film mogul was ultimately found guilty in February 2020. Subsequently, he was sentenced to 23 years in prison the following month. In a second sexual assault trial held in December 2022, Weinstein faced more charges and was again found guilty of 3 counts of rape and assault. As a result, he received an additional 16-year prison sentence in February 2023. The biggest surprise is that the victims who came forward were not just women, but were also young girls who wanted to work and become the star they dreamed of, but faced immense exploitation, threats, and physical assault. Not just Harvey Weinstein, but several other producers and directors have been accused of forcing young minors into sexual acts, whose names have not been revealed due to their power in Hollywood.
It was he originally had asked me to come on afterwards, and it's been a tough week, to collect your thoughts and also think about those in the case.
Other top Hollywood elite? Well, I'm sure that those people will be found out eventually. In fact, it just might be better for them to come out now through self-admission, turn themselves in, and they'll have lenient charges against themselves. Because if they come after them without being turned, themselves turning them in, they're going to get the books thrown at them. Now, will it happen in the Ninth Circuit? I don't know. Don't know if it'll happen in the Ninth Circuit or not. But, that would certainly be something that if I was in one of those big legal offices, that I would transfer that over to another circuit. Just saying, because they'll get off if they're seen in the Ninth Circuit. Either that or the judges need to have another shakeup, and say, oh, well, you're not allowed to live in the same place anymore. You have to travel to actually go to all of your courts and everything. That's one thing that I kind of miss, that the judges actually had to travel around to their courts and that they didn't have a set place. And honestly, when it comes to judges being voted in, yeah, I think that's a bad idea too. I don't think that your county judges should be voted in, because they're politicians just as well.
Asian.
But the story does not end here. Harvey Weinstein had other connections with the billionaire show host in Hollywood. This led to speculation of whether he was gaining some kind of support from his very close and influential friend, none other than Oprah Winfrey, who claims to be a big supporter of girls and has even opened a school for girls in South Africa. This eye-opening revelation has forced society to confront the role of power dynamics and institutional betrayals that enable such reprehensible behavior within the industry. Ashton Kutcher's willingness to speak out underscores the urgent need for change and accountability, signaling an end to the days of sweeping these problems under the rug. Along with Ashton Kutcher, Mel Gibson, and Mark Wahlberg have been the most courageous celebrities to speak against such agendas in Hollywood. In a pre-recorded interview for Ireland's The Late Late Show, actor Mel Gibson discussed the increasing number of sexual harassment accusations in Hollywood.
Mark does have the victims, of course, and I'm glad they spoke up. And I think it's unfortunate that they have to relive the whole thing in order to heal themselves. But, this is what, and the rest of us is subjected to the problem.
Acknowledging his own past as a domestic abuser, Gibson expressed his support for the courage of those who have come forward as alleged victims of sexual abuse and assault within the entertainment industry. Finally, after much anticipation, Mel Gibson has shared his views on the abuse and sexual harassment scandals affecting Hollywood. When questioned about the allegations involving figures like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, Gibson candidly expressed his thoughts during a red carpet appearance for Daddy's Home 2. Things got shaken up a little bit, and there is a lot of light being thrown into places where there were shadows, and that is kind of healthy, Gibson told The Guardian. It's painful, but the pain is a precursor to change. While people have been amazed by these celebrities' bravery and courage to speak against the Hollywood elite, they are not far from the reality of the consequences of what happened to the people who spoke about the abuse they faced. Such people are closely related to Hollywood, who are being blacklisted for exposing the dark side of Hollywood. Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel collaborated to create a powerful movie called Sound of Freedom. The film aimed to shed light on the various human exploitations prevalent within the industry. According to Jim, this movie was made for the sake of our children, our country, and our sovereignty. Following its release, it garnered significant attention, and it became apparent that many other film producers wanted to address similar issues. However, they found themselves hesitant or unable to do so for various reasons. The big giants of Hollywood tried their best to not give rise to the movie Sound of Freedom due to its content and exposing the hidden secrets about child abuse and human trafficking.
I didn't count up my mouth about how God told me that. And they were like making jokes of it. I said, hey, remember that idiot talks about God, coming to him? I said, you guys were right, though.
While Ashton Kutcher has revealed that part of his day job is fighting sexual abuse and trafficking by being a chairman of an app called Thorns that his team has created to protect children and people from such terrifying incidents. Mel Gibson has also been shedding light on Hollywood's dark side and has addressed people to eradicate abuse by spreading awareness. Wow, it seems like more and more celebs are taking a stand against it. People can't help but wonder, what if people like Mel Gibson and Ashton Kutcher join hands together? The Hollywood industry might be a safe place for people to work in. Actors such as Rose McGowan and Fred Corey have also exposed the Hollywood elite's power and what is going on behind the scenes. Fred Corey has unveiled the covers of Hollywood. He said, the biggest problem in Hollywood is pedophilia. The time has come for Hollywood to confront its demons and strive to create a safer and more respectful environment for everyone involved. Thanks to technological advancements and the support of public figures like Ashton Kutcher, wrongdoers can no longer escape the consequences of their actions. With these tools and backing, it is now possible to ensure that those who engage in harmful behavior face severe repercussions for their actions. Due to this recent revelation, people have taken the internet by storm. Some appreciate such fearless actors for standing up, while others are shocked by the hidden secrets of Hollywood. One user said Corey Feldman was telling the truth all along. Another one wrote Mel Gibson, Mark Wahlberg, Ashton Kutcher, the movie Sound of Freedom. The shit is about to hit the fan for the pedos in Hollywood and the elites. Isn't it funny how Hollywood is all about giving themselves awards? Now they say they are all about social justice. What a bunch of hypocrites. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the drama. Until next time, stay tuned.
Next is Russell Brand.
I am so excited about my new Casper mattress. It allows me to sleep like a baby, and its cooling properties allow me to stay cool.
The former chief of the Capitol Police told Tucker Carlson that he was not informed by the deep state that they had their agents in the crowd. Is it possible that the Capitol Police were not informed of the potential threat because that threat was beneficial to the establishment? Hello there, you 6.5 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom. How many indictments, how many investigations must there be till we arrive at the promised land of transparency and clarity? Hit the notification bell, subscribe right now. That way we know our content should reach you. Let's know if you have any problems. Get your hands on this content and we'll demand a thorough investigation into it. Not an investigation where you don't call as a witness the former chief of the Capitol Police, perhaps because you don't want to hear his testimony. I'm referring to the conversation between Tucker Carlson and Stephen Sund, the former chief of the Capitol Police, who said that he was not informed that there was a potential threat prior to the events of January 6th. Now the truth is a complex business. There are many people who believe that deep state agents in the crowd encouraged violence on that day. There are other people who think that the events were entirely as is reported by the mainstream media. And now there's this new emergent idea that there was advance warning that there could be trouble, but sufficient measures were not taken to prevent them, perhaps because it was beneficial to have some disruption and disturbances that day. Do these relations exonerate Donald Trump? For example, if the deep state knew that there was a threat, didn't inform the Capitol Police and enable the police force to prevent that threat by having sufficient officers on the site on that day, how can Trump be blamed for these events by inciting the violence on that day? How can he? It seems that the deep state are at least partly culpable. There are many different ways we can look at the events of January 6th, but it does seem to me that there's more to this story than just Donald Trump caused it by encouraging it. Let's have a look at the conversation between Tucker Carlson and Stephen Sund and then come to our own conclusions.
Certainly, federal agencies had intel suggesting this was going to be a bigger than normal protest. It could be violent.
Absolutely. Now, look back and see some intel that was out there, and I referenced a lot in the book. There's intel talking about going up and killing palace guards. There's my officers. There's intel talking about using chemicals at some of the entry points. There's intel indicating that even surveillance at some of the entry points at the Capitol. None of that's been included. They talk about burning down the Supreme Court. They talk about different attacks on members of Congress. And they talk about storming the building. Not a single word of that was included in any intelligence assessment. It's obviously contradicts some of the other narratives. If there was advanced intel that there was an intention to storm the Capitol and use a variety of weaponry, that does sound a bit more like an insurrection. Some of our reporting is about, no, there was no insurrection. This was a simple protest that was exacerbated by the presence of FBI agents or CIA agents or various other agents that infiltrated that movement. But this is a different story. He's saying, I wasn't told there was any threat. Otherwise, I would have handled the event differently. That means...
Well, I would suggest that anyone that's kind of wondering, I would suggest that you find Nick Searcy's Capital Punishment. And I'm not sure exactly if you're able to find a free edition. You can always check out BitChute or maybe Odyssey might have it for free. I'm not sure. I think I saw it on BitChute though. But like I said, don't pay a penny. Don't pay a penny to anybody. Pay your internet bill and that's about it. You have access to everything else. The question is, are you good enough to be able to get around that? Paying for people's stuff. I mean, I am grateful for the people that do go in and pay for it and then upload it on all of those other video web hosting sites. But there's also the plagiarism and the copyright issues and whatnot that you have there. However, when it comes to true life events, I think it's very disreputable of anyone who is trying to make a penny off of what's going on in the world and information that is very important to our country and our safety and security. Such as who is a very big offender of this particular foible? Oh yeah, Tori says she's very, very good about separating people from their money and never showing any results. Another one, however, is worth the money is Dinesh D'Souza's documentaries or his books. However, it does get very annoying year after year having to pay $17 to watch a documentary. Usually I have to wait 3 to 6 months or so before I'm able to find a free version. However, that's how I do it, and that's how I stay informed. Yeah, but when it comes to that Tori Says shady character, don't give that woman a penny, because she's already paid for some sort of surgery. She's paid for her to have a whole grill of braces done so she could fix her teeth. Now she's losing weight at an extraordinary pace, and everyone that is on the anti-Tori Says train says that you know they're figuring that she's either taking Ozempic to lose weight or she's had a lap band surgery. I mean, she won't even justify any of it. And oh, let's not forget, she also had a birthday card. So, you know, she took all that money, she went and bought herself a Tesla, she went and got herself stomach surgery with possibly Ozempic to be able to lose all that damn weight. Come on. People, get yourselves in order. Be able to critically think. That's one thing that Tori Says definitely hates. She hates anybody that critically thinks for themselves. Or says, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. You've got your facts wrong there. So let's continue on with Russell Brand, because Tori Says ain't worth it.
With the deep state agents like the FBI are somewhat culpable. And I bet you've heard theories about other significant conspiracy theory events in American history where people had advanced information that a certain event was going to happen and didn't do enough to prevent it. But there were operatives for the CIA in certain big historical events. Let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about, guys. Conspiracy theorists. And in matter of fact, my intelligence unit is putting out documents on 4th, 5th, or 6th, indicating a low probability of civil disputes. What? Yeah. So, I mean, if you were, and I'm not, but if you were conspiracy minded, you might think that certain agencies concluded there was likely to be chaos at the Capitol, and that served their political purposes since they let it happen and they prevented you from stopping it. What's interesting about Tucker's conclusion, other than the useful way that he conveys it, is we increasingly believe here at Stay Free that whatever event we're discussing, the pandemic, the Hawaii fires, the indictment of Donald Trump, the events of January 6th, a useful tool is qui bono, who benefits. That doesn't mean that necessarily the event is manufactured, just that there are certain institutions, certain interests, certain groups that benefit from, say, a pandemic. A government is able to regulate more. Big pharma are able to profit more. That doesn't mean they caused it. It just means that society itself appears to set up to advantage certain sets of interests. If indeed the FBI had information that there was likely to be violence and they didn't inform their colleagues over at the Capitol Police Force, hey, there's likely to be violence, so you should prepare for that, why would they not do that? Well, we have to check ourselves for being conspiracy theorists. No, that Stevenson's testimony has not been included in the ongoing inquiry around January 6th. Why was his testimony not included? It seems that there is an agenda. It seems that certain events do benefit certain interests. I mean, that's not conspiracy theory, is it? So this is what we already know about events that day. Dozens of undercover agents and confidential human informants from multiple law enforcement agencies were present. Court documents indicate there were FBI informants in 2 of the groups that organised the riot, the Proud Boys and the Oak Keepers. The FBI has a long history of using confidential informants to entrap people who otherwise would not commit a crime. For example, our recent video, a fantastic video, even though I didn't say so myself, the Newburgh 4 case, where the FBI essentially created some crimes for them to commit and drove them to the crimes, and all but committed the crimes on their behalf, then put them in prison. They've been released on compassionate grounds, but for me, that's not very compassionate. At best, the riot was a massive security failure. At worst, enforcement informants may have encouraged rioters to enter the capital. So did the FBI encourage events on January the 6th in order to entrap peaceful MAGA protesters? It's very difficult for us to find sponsors over here because, let's face it, we're loose cannons and we're putting forward theories and ideas that are difficult to handle. You can handle the truth, we know that about you. That's why it's important that when we have sponsors and commercial partners, we offer them the best possible advantages. Thank you for staying and watching this message to the end. I've tried my level best to make it funny. Thank you. It's so difficult to get the truth, isn't it? We can't trust these institutions, we can't trust our media, we can't trust big tech. Do you know in our country, the UK, there's been another data breach? 40 million British voters have had their information exposed by hackers, including our names and addresses going back to 2021. We were no living them. What did I call myself back in those days? These nefarious ne'er-do-wells who spend their time hacking your accounts wide open, often ransom or sell your data to data brokers. And it's these grubby, filthy pigs who then sell on your personal information for serious profit. But you have the right to remove your data from the records of these fat cat data brokers. And that's where our sponsors, Incogni, come riding in to save the day. Incogni reach out to the data brokers and request that your personal data is removed. They have the goal of ensuring that any leaked information they have about you is deleted from the records. And it's automated, so you can just relax, lie back, and wait for the rewards. All you've got to do is create an account with Incogni using my code BRND brand, or click on the link in the description. Give Incogni the right to work on your behalf to remove your data from the broker's databases. Then relax, you'll be notified about all the brokers and remove from all the email lists you've been put on. Plus, I've got some better news for you, because the first 100 people that go to my link, incogni.com/brand, will get 60% off. That's quite a lot, isn't it? What better way to fight injustice and corruption? Okay, let's get back to the events of January 6th. After January 6th, while establishment Democrats and commentators called for the many non-violent January 6th participants to be harshly prosecuted, even charged with felony murder, some judges and prosecutors opted for leniency, acknowledging the actions of many of the individual rioters often boiled down to trespassing. I've seen footage of people pushing and smashing stuff. I've also seen footage of people peacefully trespassing. It seems that there was an agenda to frame these events as felony murder rather than trespass. So it makes you wonder if there was some encouragement. At least 2 FBI whistleblowers have been persecuted with concerns over how the January 6th protesters were treated. Stephen Friend, that is, expressed concerns about the FBI's use of SWAT teams to arrest January the 6th subjects. Within a month of these disclosures, the FBI removed Friend's security clearance and removed him from active duty. And Garrett O'Boyle disclosed that the FBI pressured him to violate the law by opening domestic violent extremist investigations without sufficient basis. O'Boyle was transferred to a new unit, moved his family across the country, and was placed on an unpaid suspension the first day he arrived. Obviously, the whistleblowers' concerns were that there was an overreach by the FBI and almost an intention to treat them as extremists without due process or due evidence. And that's the revelation, essentially, of an agenda. So how does Stephen Sun's testimony, or at least his chat?
Now, I watched that particular committee meeting, and it is crazy. Crazy bombshell information in there. If you want to find it, whose committee was it? It was Jim Jordan's committee. So you'll have to look through some of those. Fox and PBS are usually the best ones. Forbes sometimes also will include the entire meeting. They're really boring. I will give you that. They're very boring. I usually turn the speed up on times 2 for that. And it's one of the reasons that, you know, it's just completely ruined me for listening to anything at the normal speed. But yes, during Mr. Friend's testimony, I was absolutely shocked, and I was like, I can't believe that the feds would absolutely do this to someone who isn't involved. Why did they suspend him? What was he too close to is the question. How many cases was he on? There's a question. And how close was he getting to somebody who it could have incriminated? That's what it sounded like to me.
On the internet with Tucker Carlson put a different inflection on these events. While Sun was begging congressional leaders to greenlight assistance from the National Guard who were within eyesight of the Capitol, by the time the National Guard finally showed up, Sun noted New Jersey State Police had beat them to the Capitol. So Stephen Sun, in his role of chief of the Capitol Police, was not given advanced intel that there could be a problem. We know that now. He also, when asking for assistance on the scene, was denied it. In fact, the New Jersey Police got there before the law enforcement agencies that he could see on the horizon. People were coming over from Jersey Shore. Some of the Sopranos arrived in advance, and there's Paulie and Christopher getting involved and helping out. So why was that? Who benefits from not dealing with this problem before it gets too bad? A Government Accountability Office report revealed that by January 3rd, 2021, the FBI was tracking 4 domestic terrorists who planned to attend the riot, Sun said. 3 days later, on the day of the riot, the number of domestic terrorists tracked by the FBI grew to 18 to 90. The actions or lack thereof taken by the government leading up to the riot led Sun to believe that the intelligence officials in power were aware of the attack in advance and covered it up by failing to disseminate the information to those who needed it. So, what's being suggested is the government agencies had advance warning of a threat but ignored it for some reason. Lawmakers didn't want Sun to testify. Why is that? In the aftermath of the Capitol riot, lawmakers began to schedule hearings on the security failures while the Freedom grew to launch a snap impeachment of the outgoing president. I fought to testify, Sun said, but they didn't want me to testify in the Senate hearing. You would think that the chief of law enforcement of that region of the Capitol would be allowed to testify, especially if his testimony was at odds with the preferred narrative. That's what justice looks like. Remember, during the pandemic, all the time.
Oh, yeah, here's one for you. You can definitely tell when YouTube, in particular, Rumble doesn't do it. None of the others, I think, do it either. But YouTube has a really bad habit of taking clips like Russell Brand, like Glenn Beck. Tucker used to be a big one too when he was on Fox regularly because they had demonetized Tucker's particular videos. I don't think they demonetized the rest of Fox News. But when it came to Tucker's, it was. from what I understand. There needs to be a follow-up on that. But the more Russell Brand talks, the more Glenn Beck talks, the more that Tucker talks about specific buzzwords, so to say. World Economic Forum. What's another one? The WHO. A lot of those topics. The jab. The schools and everything during the lockdowns, and how the lowering of the academic standards have failed. Things that are ugly truths that the administration doesn't want. There is, whenever one of these buzzwords is spoken in a video, it will pop off an ad to be able to throw you off. It throws your concentration off, and you eventually, if there's too many ads, some people will just skip them, right? Well, that's what they're doing. And that's the reason they're doing it. They're trying to make people lose their interest. So, back to it.
Many experts who don't agree. What's that then? That's an agenda. At least it seems that the Constitution's testimony would not support the favoured outcome, an immediate snap impeachment of Trump. His testimony was discounted, not even included. That shows there was an agenda. So how can we be sure there isn't an agenda now? Perhaps most importantly of all, if there was an advance warning that there could be violence on that day, how can you continue to blame Donald Trump for inciting the violence if you knew in advance of Trump's speech that there was likely to be violence and didn't inform the Capitol Police? Does this, therefore, break down the grounds for indicting Trump? So, as we continually ask, cui bono, who benefits from this entire framing of the events of January the 6th? Donald Trump is facing 4 criminal charges related to attempts to overturn the 2020 election result, with maximum sentences ranging from 5 to 20 years in prison. Well, who will benefit from Donald Trump facing 20 years in prison? The Capitol riot has frequently been compared to the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks. On the one hand, the comparison is absurd. However, the two events do have some stark parallels. Each was an avoidable security failure, received a mountain of fear-inducing media coverage, and has since been used to justify further centralization of repressive government powers. Who benefits? And indeed, there are other comparisons that I'm not able to make on this channel. Have a look at our content on the other place, where there are perhaps parallels that are not so explicit, i.e. allowing an event to take place that could have been prevented is sometimes a tactic that advantages the very people that are decrying those events. The response to the events of January the 6th has been marked by a crackdown on dissent, a dramatic increase in anti-protest bills around the country, including at least 88 that have been introduced since the Capitol riot, a massive build-up of the Capitol Police into a national force to target terrorism, as well as the rollout by the Biden administration of a sweeping domestic counter-terror strategy. In many ways, the response to January 6th may wind up being more dangerous than the event itself. So if Stephen Sun is telling the truth and he wasn't given vital intel that there could be violent insurrectionists in the crowd, who benefits from that event taking place? Who benefits from the failure to call on-site law enforcement agencies and officers to the site? Who benefits from Donald Trump being in prison from 5 to 20 years? Who benefits from the introduction of a raft of new anti-protest laws? It seems to me that the current administration will benefit, opponents of Donald Trump will benefit, centralist, globalist, corporatist, donor-funded political organisations that do not change no matter who's in power would all benefit. When considering the framing of January the 6th, you have to ask yourself, how has this event been used? What's happened subsequently? What do we know? What information is ignored? What information is amplified? Stephen Sun's testimony on Tucker that he was not given the information he needed to properly police the event, and the fact that he was not allowed to testify clearly points to an agenda, and the potential to impeach and even imprison Donald Trump suggests that the beneficiaries are those that most oppose him. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments in the chat? If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Remember, we stream a 1 hour long daily show every day in the other place. There's a link in the description. Join us there when you can. More important than this,
Stay free.
Welcome back. We have new Fox News polls this morning that reveal 80% of voters say they believe the economy is in fair or poor condition. Only 20% would describe the economy as excellent or even good. More than half of those respondents say that President Biden has made the economy worse since taking office. 22% believe he's made it better. 22% say he's had no effect at all. The economy is also...
Well, see, those 80% are the regular people. And the 20% are the ones that went in on this smash and grab Green New Deal shit, where all they're doing is throwing all of their money into the coal and gas industry. That's what they're doing. They're buying all of those gas and coal stocks the lower they get. And as they bottom out, they will be a majority shareholder. Okay? So that's what's happening. This is why it's so essentially important, or why I think it is so essentially important not to just be buying gold and silver. You won't ever find a plug for that, I don't think. But I think you should be putting your monies into those penny stocks. Buy a share as cheap as you can and hold on to it. Does anyone not remember what happened in the movie Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser in it? That the father had actually went out and bought some of those penny stocks to a lot of companies like Enron and Microsoft and Apple. And then, he came up above ground and oh my God, he's got all of this money and they are set for the rest of their lives. Now, granted, it's simple like that. You have to get yourself a stockage broker or whatever that is, the people that actually deal with that shit. And you need to talk to them, and you need to go through and say, this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to diversify my retirement. I mean, it would. And then, as you start to grow that portfolio, eventually, put enough of that money towards at least one stock in BlackRock, one stock in Stone, and one stock in Vanguard. This is how we could actually take it back over with the stock market.
Voters' top concern headed into 2024, with 38% of the respondents saying that it's the most important issue facing the country. 27 points higher than second place border crisis. Interesting that border security is number 2. Joining us right now is Missouri Congressman Mark Alford. He's a member of the House Armed Services, Small Business, and Agricultural Committees. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. What's your reaction to these polls?
Well, look, I don't think that's anything new when it comes to especially a race for president. Back in the Clinton days, it was the economy's stupid. That was a mantra. I think the same holds true today. Americans are concerned, I know in our district, about 3 things: the rising cost of food, fuel, and fertilizer. And Joe Biden has done this to the American people. He has targeted the fossil fuel industry, but he has put the crosshairs on the backs of the American people. This inflation that we're seeing on those 3 items especially, and utilities, is a direct tax on the American people. And I think Joe Biden's going to take that at the polls come November 25.
Well, it's interesting because it all goes back to policy. So what you're saying, is resonating with me and the audience, because we look at the policy being the climate change agenda as the #1 priority for this administration. And throughout the administration, the Securities and Exchange Commission with new rules for business, they have to report what could be an issue in terms of the climate. A new report from Real Clear Investigations now says this: growing warnings that Biden could get scorched by green dependency on red China. The author Ben there writes this: China is the leading producer of 30 of 50 minerals. 10 of the top 15 global wind turbine manufacturers are Chinese, while China's share in each of the 5 key manufacturing stages of solar panels exceeds 80%. This is from Ben Weingarten at Real Clear Investigations. Congressman, we just came off of a period where so many people are complaining about America's reliance on China, that the supply chain in China is responsible for the underlying active ingredients in our prescription drugs. We also rely on China for certain technology. I mean, should we be relying on China even more with now this new move into solar panels, or the batteries, or the rare earth minerals that are needed for those batteries? So many in China. We're going backwards.
Exactly right, Maria. China has been playing chess, and Joe Biden and this administration has been playing the game of tiddlywinks. China has
tiddlywinks.
But not just here. They, with their Belt and Road Initiative, have created relationships in all parts of the world, especially Africa, where those rare minerals are mined and needed for this climate cult initiative. I think Joe Biden has. I think Joe Biden and the climate cult initiative wants generalist Americans to be eating bugs and driving electric vehicles. We are not ready to do that in America. I was just at Fort Leonard Wood, which is in my district. They train some 400 big truck drivers a year to carry tanks and other equipment. They're trying to go to an electric vehicle by 2028. We're not ready to do that. We don't have the infrastructure. It's short-sighted. Let's start using the fuels.
Yeah, so Fort Leonard Wood. Fort Lost in the Woods. Anybody been there? I've been there. Husband was there for quite a few months. He had to go through basic training twice because he broke his leg during the final run, PT run, for him to graduate from basic training. So he had to go through all over again. That was fun for him. But yeah, he didn't wash out. I'm so proud of my husband for that. He stuck through, and he went through basic a second time, and then he went to AIT. And then we were PCS'd in Fort Stewart. And we stayed there for 4 years, and then he got out because it was the Obama, the ass end of the Obama administration, and they're trying to throw any and everybody out just for the minor infractions. So when my husband was going to go re-sign for another 4 years, he had found out that his rank wasn't high enough. He had gotten in trouble. We're gonna leave that for another story. But he had gotten in trouble, and he had lost rank, and they had busted him all the way down to a fuzzy, an E1 fuzzy. He was an E4, about to go to an E5, and he got frustrated, and he got in trouble while he was over in Afghanistan. And when he got back, he had worked his way back up all the way to E3, but they held off. They held off from promoting him back to E4 so that he could re-sign another contract. So he was honorably discharged, and we came home. Or I came home. We separated for a while. And I brought the kids home because, school was about to start and I had nowhere for the kids to be able to go back to school. So that's how I ended up back in my home state, back in my hometown. Just the street. I'm one street away from the school and the library and everything. Yeah. So I definitely know Fort Leonard Wood. I know this guy's area pretty well. It's very damn confusing to get around that base for sure. Then I think St. Louis was really, really nice. It was near there. I came in that way instead of, the other way to enter. See, there's two main highways and everything that meets near Fort Leonard Wood and everything, and then there's a big town outside of it, that was a really nice place. I can't remember the name of that one, but it's a real nice place. Stayed in a hotel there for 2 nights or so. My brother had drove me all the way up to Missouri because, I'm terrified to drive by myself. I always, in the last couple of years and everything, because of the, just not knowing what was going on with my health and everything, I would get dizzy spells, and I can't drive. I'm scared to drive. That I'm going to have one of those dizzy spells while I'm behind the wheel, and a couple of times I've hit a couple of dogs, and it's traumatic every single time it happens. But, I was going through one of those spells while driving, and I hit a dog. So, it's just one of those things that I don't drive much anymore for that very reason. Yeah. We will finish this clip up, and we will have a short break right after it, okay?
We have the fossil fuels that we still have plenty of over the pipelines, open the drilling once again from there.
Yeah, that's not what the Democrats want. You know that. And House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is demanding that the National Archives now turn over unredacted emails involving then Vice President Joe Biden, along with Hunter Biden and Ukraine and Burisma officials. Comer wants those emails, and the committee is targeting specific emails in which President Biden used an alias. He used pseudonyms, names: Robert L. Peters, Robin Ware, J.R.B. Ware. Congressman, why is a vice president using...
Oh, wow. There's 2 other names? I'd heard Robert Peters overnight, but I didn't hear about Robin Ware and J.R.B. Ware.
All of these alias names on emails, it further raises the question of, is he trying to hide money flows? Relationships with executives at Burisma, and the fact that House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says he accepted $5 million from officials at Burisma, and Hunter accepted $5 million. That's $10 million just from one company in Ukraine.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life.
So obviously they don't want to know what he's about to say.
Yeah, those who write romance novels and those who are trying to hide something. And Joe Biden is no Fabio. Let's get that clear right now. He is definitely trying to hide something. It has been for so many years. This web of lies and deceit that the Biden crime family has created, and Joe Biden is the black widow in the middle of it. I think James Comer is going to get to the bottom of it. We need those unredacted emails from the National Archives to get to the bottom. This is a national security issue.
So where do we stand in terms of an impeachment inquiry, Congressman? Every day, another drip by drip by drip on all this information from the House Oversight Committee about money that the Biden family has taken in. These are allegations until we actually see some serious proof here, and we want to know what you're going to do about it.
Well, Maria, I know we talked about this last week. Americans are growing frustrated. We're in our in-district work month of August right now. I bumped into Stephen McCarthy at the airport in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and he knows the importance of getting to the bottom of this. I believe, truly, the momentum is building, and we are going to have an impeachment inquiry. But we've got to do this the right way. James Comer, Jim Jordan are building the evidence case. I know Greg Steube has filed for articles of impeachment, but we've got to go through the proper committee process, get our ducks in a row to build confidence in the American people, and to further have a chance of even having a conviction in the Senate. Indictment, basically, in the House of Representatives is no good unless we have a conviction in the Senate.
Yeah, well, how much more evidence do you need? How much more do you need to show if, in fact, a sitting president or a sitting vice president accepted bribes from a Ukrainian company and Chinese companies in the middle of questions about China's motives on the global stage? What else do you need to see?
Well, I think the evidence is there. Let's be clear about that. The left, the progressive woke part of this country is saying, hey, where's the evidence? The evidence is there. It is building the case. I'm not a prosecutor, never have been, won't pretend to be. But I know that you want to get as much evidence as possible into this case before you bring it before the American people. In this impeachment inquiry that I assume would be run by the Judiciary Committee, these facts will be made evident. They'll be formalized, and we will have a vote eventually, I hope, in the U.S. House of Representatives to impeach Joe Biden.
All right, we'll be watching, Congressman. These are just extraordinary times, for sure. Mark Alford, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, with less than a week to go until the first presidential debate of the 2024 election season, one question is still looming. Will former President Donald Trump be there? Our Elaine Rojas Castillo spoke with a political science professor who shares why that may not be the biggest issue ahead of the big day. Right now, 8 candidates have qualified for the upcoming Republican presidential debate, and so far, all are committed to participating, except for one, former President Donald Trump. That decision is one Marquette political science professor Amber Wachowski says is making waves in the party.
He has support among Republicans, including Republicans here in Wisconsin, but there's also candidates that are trying to break through and use this first debate as an opportunity to really shape the narrative about who they are as a candidate and why they would be the credible or the right alternative, if you will, to take on Trump in the Republican nomination.
New polls show some of the candidates, including Ron DeSantis, are distantly behind Trump in support among voters, which makes this first debate even more important.
So I think there's some candidates that would be looking forward to having Trump on the stage, present in the debate, an opportunity to kind of go head to head, if you will, to be able to debate, to clarify where the differences are with a Trump candidacy.
The last time a candidate decided not to go, former President Trump back in 2016. He skipped the first debate to campaign in New Hampshire.
In cases where Trump is not on the stage, candidates might be thinking, well, this is an opportunity to frame the narrative that perhaps Trump is scared, isn't up to the task of appearing on stage, and so I think it can go either way.
I spent the day trying to talk to voters in Milwaukee and ask them what they thought if Trump didn't show up to next week's debate. And while none of them wanted to be featured on camera because of how divisive the issue is, they said that if he chooses not to come, it may take attention away from the other candidates and could spell trouble for their campaigns going forward. Reporting in Milwaukee, Elaine Ross Testigo, Team J4 News.
Well, we also have more information about each candidate that will be appearing on that debate stage. You can see all of that by scanning the QR code on your screen, which will take you to the story.
I can scare the situation blank.
Okay, so let me tidy this up really quick and all right, and I will be right back. Okay, and I'm back. Sorry about it. Nature calls and you can't stop it. So, hope y'all were able to go and run to the potty parade. And shall get back to it. Alright, continuing on with a CNN clip. Okay.
Out before the former president has turned himself in on those charges in Georgia. Sources tell us that most likely to happen next week as his legal team is working out the details of his surrender at the Fulton County Jail. Let's discuss this case, our implications, former Trump White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham and Republican election lawyer Ben Ginsburg. Good to have you both on today. Thanks so much. Stephanie, I want to ask you this. You look at the doxing of the...
She's the reason that I pulled this clip up, because I saw her name, and this lady used to work for Melania. So I'd really like to know what she says, because Trump also lumps her in with Ron DeSantis as being one of those people that turned on him. So, take what you will from that one, but, you know, I don't know.
These jurors, you look at these threats, for instance, against the judge here. The former president has attacked the system. He's attacked the judges. He's made personal and public attacks against some of the witnesses in this case. Has he helped to give license by his own public attacks to this kind of behavior and these kinds of threats?
Absolutely. I mean, and you can look to January 6th, I think, as a huge, huge example. But, you know, what gets me is that I know very few Republicans want to upset Donald Trump in any way right now. But I'm asking, why are there no Republicans, most specifically the people running against him for the Republican nomination, calling on him to put something out to say there should be no violence? Please do not threaten anybody having to do with my many criminal cases. Please do not threaten the jurors. How is it that there's absolutely not any Republicans out there that I'm aware of that are calling on Trump? All of them should be calling on Trump to say something. Because I think that also shows voters who he really is. That
There
he
is.
Quiet, or he won't say anything.
There is. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy, who has been coming out against it, which I only think that, you know, he's doing that in order to be able to boost his own numbers. That and possibly get that VP position. You know, I don't think that Vivek Ramaswamy actually thinks that he has a snowball's chance in hell against Donald Trump. Do you?
Can be threatened?
Yeah, it's a good point, because it's exactly what folks were asking for on January 6th, right? For a public statement to call back the rioters. Ben, I think many people were surprised to learn that under Georgia law, grand jurors' identities, they are listed in public court documents. That's the way it is. I wonder if that law survives the current time we're in. Is that, from your perspective, someone who's participated in many cases, and you're well aware of the politics around our systems today and the public threats to them, should that change?
Well, the incentives behind releasing the names was a good one. It's because you do want some transparency in your government, but it was also a rule that was put in a very different time from that. And so, as you see, these grand jurors who did do their civic duty now come under harassment and attack. There will be a rethinking of all these laws. So it'll be a little bit of transparency in our government that gets taken away, another institutional sort of denigrate.
And it's there for a reason, right? But the threats might very well outweigh it.
Yeah, there's reason for that, because the townspeople of those places, when those laws were put in place, wanted to be able to hold the jurors accountable too. Because there was something called jury nullification and somebody buying jurors and whatnot. You know, that's the reason those laws are in place. And they're there in order to be able to keep those jurors honest. That's what that law is there for the transparency of it, in order to keep them honest.
Ben, another question for you before I go back to Stephanie. You've heard a lot of this whataboutism, which is, of course, a new national sport. But some people are now making comparisons between Trump's attempts to overturn the election and the many lies he shared about false election fraud, and Al Gore's election disputes in 2000. Of course, you took part in that on the Republican side as the court process played out. Of course, Al Gore eventually conceded the election. Do you consider those two events at all equivalent?
No, not in the least. Look, the Florida election that Al Gore contested was 537 votes. Under any semblance of what sort of proper behavior is, that's an election that you can't contest and recount. Donald Trump went ahead and contested and asked for recounts and brought litigation, and he lost every one of those 63 cases. And the bargain in that situation is that you can take the cases to court, you have every right, but in going to court, you also have to abide by the decisions of the court. Donald Trump failed to do that. Al Gore conceded the election rightly and properly, and Donald Trump has continued to basically tear down the institution of American elections with unfounded charges.
Stephanie, advisors do not believe Trump is planning to take part in next week's GOP presidential debate. What do the other GOP candidates need to do there to stand out and make themselves a viable alternative to Trump?
Well, I would say respectfully, they need to stop kissing up to Donald Trump. That is clearly not working for them. And, you know, the base, which is who they're all trying to appeal to right now in order to become the Republican nominee, they like people who are tough. Clearly, look at who they're going for right now in Donald Trump. But how are people supposed to think that these people, these nominees, are going to stand up to somebody like Putin or Kim Jong-un or even some leaders of our allied countries or members of Congress if they won't stand up to this one actually older man? So I think that's something they need to do. They need to change. They need to pivot. They need to just not only talk about their policies, they need to call him out and show that they have the backbone, I'll just say that, to do it.
We'll be watching for that backbone. Stephanie Grisham, Ben Ginsburg, thanks so much for both of you.
Yeah, so here's a question.
in the military. I dipped the entire time I was there. A lot of us did.
So here's a question.
President Biden is meeting with Japan.
Exactly how much is Stephanie Grisham sitting there selling out Trump and Melania for every time she shows up on CNN? Like I said in my John Bolton review. How much are these pundits, how much are these former government workers paid for a CNN slot for their expertise? Huh? Stephanie Grisham was a glorified secretary, and that's all she was. She was a personal assistant. Okay? I really don't think that she has any expertise other than filling a calendar up and taking phone calls. So for her to sit there and take a pot shot at President Trump's age, shame, 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 shame. You're a sellout, and you know it.
Prime Minister and South Korea's president later today at Camp David.
The summit comes as Fox News polling reveals voters aren't too happy with his foreign policy and with Bidenomics.
Peter Ducey is live from the North Lawn at the White House. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
And I will just follow up on that by saying that luckily my daughter has my hair and my mom's hair, and right now it just stands straight up. It just stands straight up, just like her dad.
Yeah, we want to see a picture of that too.
Yeah. We will get a picture of that as well. But it's a big day here at the White House. Biden White House. This is the first time that he's hosted a world leader at Camp David, and he's got two of them, Japan and South Korea. They are in the D.C. area, and officials are telling us that they're going to talk about China and North Korea and ballistic threats and cyber threats. And at the moment, foreign policy is the rare
and that reminds me
spot on President Biden's polling. Everything is underwater, but 41% say he's doing a good job with that. And once he gets to
Peter Ducey, congratulations on the birth of your daughter. So sweet. I mean, you're the guy that gets to take a bow because you got him to call you a stupid son of a beep. Yeah. So I was one of the first ones on Twitter to actually say, "Hey, take a bow."
the economy, that gets down to 37% approving. Inflation all the way down to 31%, and that is as consumer prices are up almost 16% since the president took office. That's driven by a 62% spike in gas, 11% bump in home prices, and 34% increase in credit card debt. That is why a majority, 52%, are saying that President Biden has made the economy worse, and that is why a bigger majority, 65%, say their personal financial situation is only fair or poor. That is much lower than the 35% who say it is excellent or good. There is going to be a press conference later on today, and we don't know much about the format, but since there are going to be 3 world leaders talking at once, the press corps will probably only get 1 or 2 questions to President Biden, but we'll see. That's this afternoon. Thank you.
And yesterday he was asked again about Maui, and he said, no, can't talk about it right now. But Peter, you just detailed, yesterday Peter and I were talking on the phone, it was not about our hair, but you were talking a little bit. Well, actually, it was about a foreign trip. The next time people are actually able to, like you, are able to try to shout a question at the president is going to be in another country.
It seems like the next big thing on the schedule, they can always add stuff, but the next big thing is a trip to the G20 in India, because later on tonight he is going to fly from the Camp David, Maryland area to Lake Tahoe, where he and whoever else is invited on a Biden family vacation are going to hang out through the end of next week, and then there's a little bit of time in between, but it's, you got Labor Day on the calendar, and then a very long flight to the G20. So yeah, it's possible. He still hasn't talked about the elevation of David Weiss, the special counsel, to investigate his son and others, and so it's possible that the first time that comes up is in India.
Yeah, and here you were talking about the Washington Post story that's come out and talked a little bit about Hunter Biden, how he essentially has lived there this summer in the White House, but how the comms team has tried to keep the president away from guys like you with question.
Right, just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean they're not aware of it, and they do have a whole staff here that tries to control the message. They want to talk about Bidenomics. They want to talk about a special counsel expanding a probe and a plea deal that's fallen apart, tax charges, gun charges, laptops. They don't want to talk about that. And again, that doesn't mean that it's not going to come up. That doesn't mean nobody's going to ask President Biden. Right. They can't keep him away from us forever.
So here, if he's going to Camp David, then to Lake Tahoe, when is he fitting into Hawaii?
On Monday.
Okay, he was asked about it again. You mentioned that. They said, do you want to comment on this? And he said, no, not now. So it says on the post, the Biden disaster. Joe gives another cold no comment when he's asked about Hawaii tragedy.
Yeah, I don't understand the comms strategy with that. They have been very good over the last 2.5 years of sending him out with a card, because they know that something big in the headlines will get shouted, and you can just at least have a line. I don't know why all the silence with Hawaii, but that is like a change in the way that they've operated here.
Right. Well, let's see what he says on Monday. Peter, thank you very much. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News. And the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is demanding that the National Archives turn over unredacted emails, which involve then Vice President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Ukraine, and Burisma. The committee is also asking for access to a case record titled Email Messages to and or from Vice President Biden and Hunter Biden. They're targeting specific emails in which President Biden used a pseudonym, Robert Peters, or Robin Ware, or J.R.B. Ware, all different names that he was using on these emails. Comer also sent a letter to the National Archives writing, quote, Joe Biden has stated there was an absolute wall between his family's foreign business schemes and his duties as Vice President, but evidence reveals that access was wide open for his family's influence peddling.
Well, as I said in one of the Thoughts on News episodes, is that the reason that he didn't have any conversations, so to say, was for total deniability or plausible deniability. And it was according to one of Joe Biden's brothers, who said it straight to Tony B himself. I mean, come on, this isn't rocket scientists, or this isn't rocket science. And we don't have to be rocket scientists to be able to figure this out. You look at it, and you say, this is wrong. Simplest answer is the answer. And with impeachment inquiry, I do see that it gives you more subpoena power. I do see that. However, Nancy didn't even go through those steps at all with the Trump impeachment, did she? No. She just wrote them up and she just took them on over to the Senate. So, you know, what's all Nancy up to? She's merely just a representative now, as far as I understand, and I suppose the best thing that would be for everyone is to start looking into San Francisco district and start trying to find someone that will be able to take over that awful district and be able to clean it up. I really hope that a lot of Cali peeps have been waking up. I hope so. I hope that they realize that their voting record is what caused this. So, carrying on.
Joining right now is Pennsylvania Congressman Dan User. He's a member of the House Financial Services and Small Business Committees. Congressman, good to see you this morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Maria. Great to be with you.
Well, interesting development here with Joe Biden's aliases, all these names that we're learning from James Comer that was used on emails. What can you tell us about this?
Well, what I know is that anything with Joe Biden, anything with the big guy, when there's other aliases such as Robert Peter, Robin Ware, we know it's not Robin Hood because they're keeping all the loot for the Biden family. You know, they're indicating that is Vice President Biden at the time, and so therefore those records should be made available, and they're linked to any even weak investigation.
He just says something, not Robin Hood, because they keep it off. That's funny. Do you remember when Joe Biden said, "Where's the money?" Where? W-A-R-E. Where? Where's the money? Keep following that line right there. Keep following that thread, Mr. Comer. I think you just might be on to something.
Investigation would show that's a direct link to the big guy, i.e. Joe Biden.
Do you have any sense? Yeah, I mean, do you have...
Oh, cross-reference those IP addresses too, where those emails came from. Just might be able to find out if it is Joe Biden or not.
Any sense of whether or not the Oversight Committee is going to now see a dearth of evidence because of this new special counsel? When you've got David Weiss running things now, the special counsel in the Hunter Biden investigation, is that going to stop the flow of information to the House Oversight Committee, do you think? Because they could just say, oh, this is an active investigation. David Weiss is in charge. We can't send anything to Congress anymore.
Yeah, you know, Weiss took 5 years and got nowhere and set up the so-called sweetheart deal. They let the statute of limitations end, and he set something up that was virtually unlawful based upon the activities and crimes that were committed. So we're largely planning for the Republican majority to be handling that. Pardon me, to be handling anything related to this investigation. But sure, we're going to press him. We're going to press him. I mean, it's a special prosecutor. He should be delivering investigatory evidence, real truth and evidence as to the situation at hand.
And now we understand, Congressman, the top White House lawyer, Stuart Dellery, is leaving the Biden administration next month. He's been there 3 years serving the president. Biden released a statement calling Dellery a trusted advisor. No replacement has been named. You know, a new report claims that President Biden is, quote, very obsessed with the negative coverage of Hunter, so much so that advisors and aides don't even mention the topic in front of the president or during campaign meetings. Congressman, this, as the media focuses almost entirely on Donald Trump, 4 indictments, and now we understand that there's more coming from Arizona, a 5th investigation. What are your thoughts here?
You know, it's outrageous. And Maria, you know, I'm spending a lot of time at county fairs and talking to hundreds of people, and people tend to use the word of disgusted, literally disgusted. When you compare the offenses made, which are clear, by the Biden family, millions and millions of dollars, dealing with China, dealing with the darkest corners of the world, and then indicting Donald Trump for questioning an election, for documents that, as president, he was the only one that actually had the right to pull such documents. It's simply outrageous. People are outraged. And, you know, so we just got to continue to get to the bottom of it, understand the differences in this, and provide the evidence. You know, in Pennsylvania, somebody said to me, hey, we got endless mountains. They got endless mountains of evidence. What are you going to do with it? And look, there's a lot of issues facing our country, so many issues, and we really, thanks to Bidenomics and the Biden policy, but this is, we've got to know whether or not our president was involved, is compromised, and took payoffs, instigated bribes, and committed extortion. And there's a lot of evidence that points in that direction.
What we want to see, look, we all want to see the evidence. President Trump was supposed to release it in a conference, a press conference on Monday, but he's canceled it. His lawyers are saying that's not going to do you any good. You've got to fight this in court, not in the public domain. But the legal team is now requesting that his January 6th trial be pushed off until 2026, April of 2026. You know that Special Counsel Jack Smith wants the trial to be a quote-unquote speedy trial. He wants it to start January 2nd of next year. But we're looking at the 4 indictments against President Trump as Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays announced he's investigating Trump over the 2020 election. This happening just days after Governor Katie Hobbs told reporters that the state should press charges against the former president. Congressman, we don't know where this investigation in Arizona is going, but you mentioned a whole host of other issues. You're on financial services, the committee there. What are you expecting when you all come back in September? Is the priority going to be an impeachment inquiry for President Biden, or is it going to be keeping the government open, given the fact that the government runs out of money on September 30th?
I think there will be an impeachment inquiry, but because of the large amount of evidence that it exists, I also think that the timing on this is highly suspect. And what do they think? The American people are stupid with these with the timing on this. Every time there's another a bit of evidence that comes out, there's another indictment. There's a supremacy clause. Supreme Court is not about allowing investigations to interfere with elections. So that's a very valid reason to watch the timing on this, and so it's not weaponized against President Biden's opponents.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we noticed that as well. Congressman, good to see you as always. Somebody keeps calling you quite early in the morning this morning. Dan User, thanks very much.
At least he was a good sport there.
You don't have to pay a penny for a useless doorbell camera subscription. Starting now, this revolutionary affordable...
President Biden, meanwhile, is hosting Japan's Prime Minister and South Korea's president today for his first ever leader summit at Camp David. With China's aggression expected to dominate the conversation, it comes as the Biden administration announces new tariffs on can-making metal imports. China has seen the highest tariffs with a levy of over 122% of their import value. I spoke with Stevens Inc. Executive Vice President Mary Kissel about this yesterday. Watch what she said.
The bigger question is a tougher question, which is it's not just about punishing China and erecting barriers. It's about building alliances and strengthening the American economy and our innovators to win. And I hate to say competition because it's not a competition, right? It's not a fair and level playing field. That's something else I learned in the administration, right? You talk to free traders and they say, well, free trade's great. Yeah, it is, but we don't have free trade with China, and that's the problem. Yes. What we need to insist on is a fair and level playing field. We should stop treating them differently.
Yeah, but Trump. A similar sentiment that President Trump told me when I spoke with him recently. Atlas Organization founder and the author of The Decisive Decade, author Jonathan D.T. Ward joins me now to talk more about that. Jonathan, great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. President Trump instituted tariffs on China and pushed back. That was his way of pushing back on the aggression from communist China. But you've mentioned so many times that the capital markets are wide open for communist China, and that has ordinary Americans basically funding the expansion of the CCP. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, sure, Maria. So it's been a while since tariffs have been in the news, and it's good to see that that's still an instrument of U.S. policy. Apparently, this was a 122% tariff, and part of the reason, according to the Wall Street Journal, was an investigation that would have asked this Chinese companies in the can-making industry to prove that they are not beholden to the Chinese Communist Party and that they refuse to participate in that. So, again, the Chinese companies and the Chinese state are deeply intertwined, and that's the nature of the system. I mean, very few things really get outside of the bounds of that relationship. And insofar as this sector is going to be important, and we're concerned about dumping, and we have very few plants left that even do this in the United States. I mean, probably the right move. So glad to see that that's still a policy instrument. And as you just mentioned, I mean, this is just one dimension. I mean, we have not got a full spectrum trade strategy for China. It's one thing to put tariffs on; it's another to go and win a global contest for trade. I mean, they have become the primary trading nation with the plurality of the world other nations, and we just don't have a response to that yet. We're going to need one. And then when it comes to capital markets, I mean, we've seen very little action in last week's executive order, which is, I think, an important signal to business, and it's being read that way to some extent. It's still not a strong enough signal and not a genuine broad spectrum capital market strategy. So when you're talking about the real index creators and the fact that so much capital is flowing into China, not just from the United States, but from the entire U.S. alliance system, which makes up the bulk of global wealth and GDP, I mean, we just don't yet have a full spectrum economic strategy, and that's what we need if we're serious about this competition. And as Mary mentioned, and as I've written about, at great length, it's not just about containment of China; it's also about building our relations with our allies and ensuring that the structure of the U.S. System remains intact despite the challenge from Moscow and Beijing. So the Camp David summit in that regard is absolutely a win. I mean, getting Korea and Japan together has been an enormous challenge in U.S. foreign policy for decades, and here we are at hopefully the beginning of bringing a real important trilateral together with China and North Korea as the focus.
Yeah, well, that's very good because the neighbors are in the region are also watching this aggression and realizing they also need a plan. That executive order from the administration obviously doesn't do it. We've spoken with many people on that. Roger Robinson Jr. Was with me last week and said this is incredibly narrow and the public market's got a complete pass. It's not even going to be instituted for a whole year. And yet China's Commerce Ministry is trying to appear talk, saying yesterday that they would welcome a visit by U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Beijing saying that the countries are in quote close communication on arrangements. There have been reports that she could travel to Beijing later this month, Jonathan. We keep sending people to travel there to Beijing, and yet the aggression gets worse and worse. I mean, Janet Yellen went there and they served her psychedelic mushrooms. What does that say about the level?
Wow. They gave her shrooms. Wow. That's just so crazy. Yeah, here's a little tidbit right here for a good funny is that my brother, when he used Twitter, he actually started getting followed by Janet Yellen. And he literally, he was like, oh, that's it, I'm out, and he bounced. And he hasn't been on Twitter ever since, this was about 7-8 years ago during the, still during the Obama administration and everything, when she was working within the Treasury or either the Fed, I can't recall which one. But, he told me that, he told me this a couple of weeks ago. He was like, Janet Yellen followed me and I got off of Twitter. I was like, oh my God. I was like, did you not realize, brother, that you could have actually instituted some good policy decisions there, But yeah, I still want to kick my brother for that one, but I love him.
Of lack of respect that the Communist Party has for America. They do the ordering in this Chinese restaurant, and they order mushrooms that are hallucinogenic, and she eats them.
Right. Apparently, the mushrooms lose their, hallucinogenic properties when cooked. At least that's what she said, and some others have corroborated. But it certainly must have made her trip more interesting. So a long, strange trip to Beijing for Janet Yellen. And this is embarrassing to some extent to send officials over there to continue to engage without a real strategy, to have contradictory statements constantly, not least of which is from Yellen herself, talking about we want businesses to engage. We're not trying to slow China down economically. We're not looking for economic advantages. I mean, this is going to be won or lost as an economic competition. It's a geopolitical competition. There is a real risk of military conflict. But the major advantage the U.S. has to play is to win an economic competition while we still can, while we're still the world's largest economy, while we're still, the reserve currency, while we still can sanction all kinds of entities around the world, and while we still are the vast majority, or certainly far more than any other nation state of global bloc. And those are the advantages we have, and we need to use them. If we're serious, if we're not serious, there's plenty, of course, we can do to keep on allowing them to gain on us.
Well, it doesn't seem like we're serious, frankly. I mean, look, maybe it's time for Beijing to send one of their officials to America, given the fact that it's not lost on me that every meeting of these cabinet officials has been a complete embarrassment. Anthony Blinken travels there, and while he's getting on the plane, they're hacking his email, and they're hacking the Commerce Department, the State Department. John Kerry goes there, and while he's still on the ground in Beijing, Xi Jinping comes down and says, nobody's going to tell us what to do with our climate strategy. And then Janet Yellen goes and they give her drugs in the mushroom. I mean, really, that is just such a level of disrespect. It's beyond. And this is all happening at a time when China's economy is weakening. Morgan Stanley cut its forecast for China's economic growth into next year due to what they're calling a slump in property market and local government financial stress. We know that China's property company Evergrande has now filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy in a Manhattan court. This happened yesterday. This is a big deal, Jonathan. Let's talk about this shift in sentiment around the Chinese economy. Even businesses are having second thoughts about going into China, opening their doors, knowing that there's all these new rules that the CCP has that allow them to march into any business and steal their intellectual property and raid the place like they've done at Bain & Company.
Well, sure, and I think you're right, and certainly the media is picking up on the slowing of the Chinese economy to a certain extent, and the weakness in the property sector. I mean, these are all becoming mainstream readings of how China's doing. So I think at a strategic level, that presents, it shows us that economic containment, real economic containment, I think is a viable strategy. We can contain China in the 2020s and ensure that they never catch up to us. I mean, that's what we should be doing. That's capital markets, trading technology, and as you pointed out, I mean, things like the new national security law, the anti-foreign espionage law, raid on Bain and other groups. I mean, this is showing, as well as geopolitics, the support for Putin, the understanding of what Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine did to businesses that expected to be in Russia probably for the long run. I think businesses are starting to understand that geopolitics matters, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to deprioritize this market yet. Still supply chains there, and I think that's going to require a coordination between business and government, and essentially to enable corporate strategies to shift away from China and to de-risk that, and also to get capital flows coming back to the United States. And on the growth rate drop, I mean, Morgan Stanley just revised this year's projections for Chinese GDP from 5% to 4.7, but that's still 3.5 times what they project the U.S. growing at this year. So we're not, we're still dealing with a growing country. We're dealing with a country that's growing faster than us. It's a $20 trillion economy. This is not over yet. This is just beginning.
Real quick, Jonathan, before you go, the Chinese yuan is now at a 15-year low, and of course, the Evergrande bankruptcy is top of news. Do you believe that U.S. banks are going to get on the hook for this Evergrande disaster? Are we going to see the U.S. banks have to take a fall because of what's going on with this bankruptcy of Evergrande?
Well, sure, and they just announced their offshore debt restructuring, and yes, anyone that's invested in this is going to get hurt hard, and I think anyone that's invested in other aspects of the Chinese economy need to look at what they're doing. So the banks probably need to deeply revise their strategies towards China and the Pacific more broadly.
You have been writing this for so many years, Jonathan. You've been spot on once again in your latest book. Thanks very much for your knowledge and your time on all of this, Jonathan. Thank you. Jonathan Dickey Ward joining us this morning. We'll see you soon, Jonathan. We'll be right back.
ED is personal. And now, so is treating it. Introducing Hardness.
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is demanding that the National Archives turn over unredacted emails involving then Vice President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Ukraine, and Burisma. The committees are asking for access to a case record called email messages to and or from Vice President Biden and Hunter Biden. They're also targeting specific emails where Biden used...
Yeah, we did. We watched that one already. Okay. So we can skip that one. Yay! Okie dokie. Okay, pause.
Flip this over, we got some post one.
Okay, this is another Timcast clip. This one is from the actual podcast of IRL, so this is like the big round table discussion with him. Georgia State Senator moves to impeach Fani Willis for indicting Trump. Yeah, that would set a precedent. That would actually start a chain reaction if he did that. It would start a chain reaction and each state would jump on to that. It would give them a framework to actually follow in order to be able to get rid of these corrupt DAs and prosecutors.
Georgia State Senator moves to impeach Trump prosecutor Fani Willis. Moore said, we must strip all funding if appropriate, impeach Fani Willis. So he read this letter, I believe, they don't have it. He said, we, the undersigned, being the duly elected members of the Georgia House of Representatives and Georgia Senate, and comprising 3/5 of each respective House pursuant to Article 4, Section 2, Paragraph 7b, hereby certify you, in writing with a copy to Secretary of State, that in our opinion an emergency exists in the affairs of the state, requiring a special session to be convened under that section, for all purposes to include, without limitation, the review and response to the actions of Fani Willis. So this is Georgia Senator Colton Moore, who apparently went on to say that they must defund or impeach if appropriate. Now, I'm not entirely convinced they'll do anything. I don't trust Georgia Republicans at all, but I'm curious where this goes. I'm not so sure this ends with Trump simply surrendering. We've already got Mark Meadows filing to have his move to federal court. A bunch of analysts believe that will happen very, very quickly. You've got John Eastman severing his case from the rest of the group, saying his defense is different from theirs. And then you've got the attempts to remove the prosecutor. I think Donald Trump should immediately, his lawyer should be filing a claim. This is interesting to me because why is this happening? It should be the first thing you heard. His lawyers file with the federal government challenging the constitutionality of trying to have him arrested. Right? That should be the first thing for a state in a state court for a federal election. But apparently Trump is agreeing to surrender. He's apparently there's a bigger point. I grew up in Rhode Island where organized crime, RICO was used largely for organized crime in mafia, right? The idea that you are now, and you made this point about Jenna Ellis a while ago, there are people who, if you read the indictment and what they're being charged with, different counts in the indictment, it's like tweeted, did this, represented, they are creating a criminal enterprise under a statute that was made to go after organized crime because mob bosses would escape because they're like, technically I didn't do that, whatever. But this is, I've been involved in two really close elections. 1994 was involved in a race that lost by 21 votes on election night, and in 2000 we won by 386 votes. The first thing you do is you're out there claiming that you won, you're making sure that you exhaust every recourse in terms of petitioning the government, talking, like nothing that they did in this case is less than expressing yourself under the laws that exist in our Constitution to participate in a democracy. They are creating a criminal enterprise by saying this goes back to what we're talking about. This is how far they're going. You know,
it feels like a sort of slip on George's part, right? They see them as criminals, so they're going to make them into criminals.
You even saw Chris Christie, who is literally all he talks about in his entire campaign is Trump, no Trump, no more Trump. He came out and said this is a mistake how they're handling this because I think again they've jumped the shark. They keep going one step further, and in her case it was because I want to show everyone in the world that I can be the champion that slays the dragon.
Yeah, I want
to show themselves to be insane. They're unhinged. Yeah, and they've got unhinged supporters on social media. You know, I think one big component of the culture war has been that fringe weirdos on social media drive the conversation among Democrats. And when they started banning conservatives, something interesting happened. You've got, I want you to imagine there's two kids. One's filthy and covered in chocolate ice all over his face. He looks like a disaster. The other kid's very clean looking and, you know, his hair's parted perfectly. He's wearing a nice little suit. And you think, man, that kid's, you know, well educated, well taken care of, and well developed. And the other kid is, something's wrong with him. You assume the dirty kid got something wrong with him. The reality is the mother just does not let the other kid have chocolate ice cream. And if he can't get access to it, he can't get all messy. The other kid, she lets him have it. So what we're seeing with the censorship on Twitter, they kept allowing the left to say the craziest things imaginable, but the right would be banned instantly. What happened is you got a perception of the right as Ben Shapiro, saying, oh, listen, these are not going to have it. They're completely anti-taxism. It's very basic, very normal conservatism. On the left, you have people arguing that you can be a chimp if you want. You just need to get the appropriate surgery. And so now you end up with post-liberals and disaffected liberals. People who are like, I can't associate with this. Democratic politicians on social media are adhering to the voices of the most fringe and insane personalities. And people on the right were listening to a bunch of regular, moderately conservative individuals. This made Democratic politicians sound like crackpots. So they started advocating for child sex changes and sex shows for children. Now you get regular people being like, yo, that's great, that's too far for me. Because they were allowed to say these things and social media wouldn't ban it. Yeah. Well, think about it. You brought up Sound of Freedom before. I started, before I actually saw the movie, I started going, what's all this QAnon stuff, right? I finally watched the entire, I'm like, I'd seen the clips, I watched the trailer, I talked to a bunch of guys, and I kept saying, like, I just don't get the QAnon thing. There's no watch it. No, I mean, literally, if you watch it, but this is what they do. They demonize it. And what happened is more people said, I gotta watch it. It became unbelievably successful. But they don't know where to stop. QAnon, there's nothing, like,
but that used to be the thing they would say to keep people.
Well, see, that's the thing. There was nothing about QAnon within that movie, supposedly. QAnon was merely just bringing up to the forefront of everybody to tell everybody, hey, there's a big sex trafficking ring and our government's behind it. That's what it was. That's what it was. That's all it still is. You still go and you read those Q posts. I mean, there's a tiny granule of truth in almost every single post. Tiny granule. You know? And then they turned it all into this weird shit when the DOD acquired the whole fucking PSYOP and from the original dum-dums that were Bernie Bros. And you go through Professor Dilly's paper, which, you know, I think she covered it all the way up to the point of DOD acquisition. And it wasn't until after that that all of the real crazy shit started getting put into the QAnon stuff. The whole narrative that Trump's going to take her down and all of that shit. That doesn't happen until, you know, way into it. Way into it. But yeah, the entire QAnon thing started by Bernie Bros. One of them's called Trefoya. The other one's called something Lestat. And there were a few others that also got that were included into it, but those are the two big ones. The Manuel Trefoya and the other guy. Those were the two main operators of the whole PSYOP to begin with. And then it was after the jump from 4chan over to 8kun. Or 8kun to 4chan, sorry. That's when the acquisition occurred, in my estimations, and looking at all of it, analyzing all of the posts for writing style and whatnot. I didn't go into like autistic decoding mode or anything, but I did read all of the posts. I followed links. I went down rabbit holes that I didn't want to. All for damn project, you know, all for a history club presentation project. And it'll never be given to any of those college kids because, you know, They shut the university down, and then, they yanked my funding, and I'm not able to go back.
Right, from used to be. They're saying that about Oliver Anthony. They're saying he's a QAnon guy.
Wait, they're still using it. I'm just saying it's not as effective as it used to be. Before, when you would say QAnon, people would be like, oh, that's crazy internet stuff. And now you say QAnon, people are like, oh, that means mainstream people in the media don't like it, and therefore maybe I should check it out on my own. There's a reawakening of curiosity.
It didn't work. Like, people saw that movie in droves. Yeah, and they're still going 175 million, basically. Yeah, beating Indiana Jones and a bunch of other films for the top box office for the year. Absolutely incredible. And the budget was really small, so it's actually performing better than we can even realize. Some of these movies, like, oh, it made $500 million, and it cost 600. Yeah, we don't, come on. Sound of Freedom was 15 million, it's at 175 million. And again, Bud Light and all those other things. I think we win culturally. And then what happens is, Oliver Anthony's a really great example. John Rich tweeted this out. All these labels are tripping on themselves trying to get him on board or sign with him. But he said if Anthony was signed to these labels, they wouldn't let that song out. You never hear it. No, why don't you write a song about drinking beer with your dog and your truck with your girl left you or something? Not about minors on an island or whatever. No, that's a bit too much. So it's a grassroots effort. But the culture matters because money talks and BS walks. Disney and all these organizations, they're losing money. They're going to have to fall in line. All their money's going to dry up.
Yeah, that was similar. Is that the money, like Alex Jones got slandered, I don't know slandered over, but he got, demeaned in the media, got talked bad about, then he got deleted from Twitter. But then when he went after his pocketbook, that's when it really stifled his.
I have always wondered why exactly that Alex Jones never went after slander and libel and defamation charges after all of those networks. Y'all charging Alex Jones was just a really bad idea. Y'all shouldn't have done that, because now that's going to open the door that when he gets out of this bankruptcy, he's going to take all of the profit that he goes after, and he's going to start going after all of you assholes on the networks, and he's going to be suing each and every network until y'all are bled dry. That's what he's going to do. That's just my take on it. He is going to sue the shit out of you. Especially the guy that is number one with the Young Turks. He's definitely going after you, sir. He's going to get you because you decided that you were going to entertain his ex-wife's machinations. And just so everybody knows, Alex Jones is caught up on his child support. He doesn't owe her anymore. He's paid her everything that he was supposed to. $10 million out of the first sellout of the company and the reorganization when they got the divorce. He paid her out $10 million. Now, some of that might be tied up in legal fees and whatnot, but for her to keep going on Twitter and say, this is the real Kelly Jones, and Alex Jones used to be my ex-husband, or he's my ex-husband, and he won't pay his child support for our youngest child. And she has learning disabilities, or she has something wrong with her where she needs extra help. Well, according to Rex Jones, the son, not true. Yeah, so go after that one. Just go after that one. Keep going after that big whale. But yeah, that's going to be one of the very first people that when he has his big legal comeback, he's going to be a billionaire. And he will have those billions and trillions of dollars. But it won't be because people, it won't be because of InfoWars store. It'll be because he sued the ever-loving shit out of CNN, MSNBC, PBS, ABC, Fox. He's definitely going after Fox. I think he just might go after individual hosts too, such as Piers Morgan. Even though Piers Morgan has given him one of his best little sound bites ever, with the 1776 will commence again if you try to take our guns away. Yeah, so that was his best soundbite right there, was with Piers Morgan. But yeah, he could also go after Piers Morgan for defamation. I would say that he'd probably go after Anderson Cooper too. But yeah, that's how I see it. When he gets done with his little bankruptcy case, he's going after everybody.
this ability to create. Now he's working for Steven Crowder, I think. Yeah, he has a special with Monk Club, but Alex Jones and InfoWars are also doing it. And they just shredded his organization financially and caused him so much stress for years. And it's nice to do Donald Trump through the legal system. Like, you can talk crap about someone only so long before he turns against you, but if you go after finance, I think that is a way to permanently destroy someone's ability to communicate.
Yeah, doesn't Alex Jones owe like the GDP of France or something? Like,
billions of dollars.
It doesn't make any sense. It makes it. I mean, I would think if you were the people suing him, you know, you're never going to see that money. So if you really felt like you needed it to fund whatever, whoever is acting on your behalf is actually trying to make a political point, and presumably they're also in on it. I think that's the whole point of our justice system right now, especially because so much of it plays out in the court of public opinion. It's not about actual justice or figuring out what's right or wrong. It's about getting mugshots, about getting Kirkwalk, about getting headlines, being able to say, well, I was the one who filed it, I was the one who did this, I served on that jury, and we did this thing, therefore I have the moral superiority, and that's what people feel like they've influenced the
culture. Just like Wikipedia page, man. They can like all they want. Like how Alex sacrificed his financial stability, or had it was sacrificed on the altar in front of him, and you watched it happen. It's like the founding fathers of the United States. They risked everything, and they risked their fortunes as well. Like at some point you speak out against it, they might shut your bank account off, but like you got to take that risk. If you want to speak what you believe, there's a risk involved, and the risk will probably intensify in the coming 5 years. Probably 2027 we're going to see sea change. That's when grabbing goes peak. I think that's when money might not be that become way less important. I think the value of money actually is going to continue to diminish.
I think you're way off on that, Ian. Sorry, I do. I think it's a lot closer. I think we are maybe only 2 years out. Have a good shift, love. Be careful. All right. Yeah, I definitely think he might be a little off on here with the financial collapse. I think the financial collapse is going to happen a lot sooner than we realize. Now there were rumors that they were supposed to be starting a FedNow, a Federal Reserve account linked with your IRS information and whatnot, to distribute the United States digital coin or dollar. I don't know how they're going to even do that because, I mean, hell, they can't even get the... does anybody remember when the Obamacare site came up and that it crashed within half an hour of opening? So, and the announcements and everything, I think we're going to have quite a bit of trouble because they don't have enough financial coders, I think, that actually code and work with bank and all of that thing. But the main thing, what they want to do with the financials is that they want to make it impossible for you to use cryptocurrency of any kind. And they also want to eventually get rid of cash. That's dangerous. Don't do that. Don't get rid of the cash. Because they're going to make it impossible for anyone to be able to hire anybody under the table for, just cutting their grass. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's no rhyme or reason to this, except for the elites to be able to jump ahead, like they always have in every single, every single downfall of civilization. Usually the rich, they skedaddle before all of the shit hits the fan. That's just what happens. Because they're able to move, while the poor are not. I'm sure that this is going to come up in one of our future clips as well. So, continuing.
We'll see what happens with that. I mean, Michael Burry, we talked about today, made a big bet against the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. And so everyone's kind of like looking around like, does he know something? Exactly. It doesn't mean he does. He got the mortgage-backed securities thing right in 2008. Doesn't mean he's a prophet. It means he got one big one right. I don't know if I want to hope he's right this time or not. I mean, a shock to the system could be good, it could be bad. I have no idea. I think ultimately the scary thing is it's going to negatively impact working class people who are already having a hard time buying groceries. Yeah, I just like to know what's going to happen. Well, SpaceX sold all the Bitcoin today or something like that. Did they really? And then the price of Bitcoin collapsed, and then they announced Ethereum ETF or whatever features, and then it jumped back up. So it's like, yeah, everyone would have loved to have known that SpaceX was about to sell their Bitcoin so they could get out before the price went down.
Yeah, everything dropped 6%.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for
Today, a Democrat governor is sued for allowing children to hide their gender transition surgery from their parents. A Georgia state senator moves to impeach the radical DA behind indicting Trump. And Netflix releases a children's cartoon that is apparently too gay for Disney. We've got all that and more coming up, and it all starts right now.
Okay, I'm going to be skipping through this one because I don't want to listen to that particular story. I don't want to hear any more about the fucking gay shit or the transgenderism shit. I don't want to hear any more about it. I want people to keep this in your bedroom. Whether you are gay, straight, it does not matter. Keep it in your bedroom. Because that's what's right, moral, and proper. Okay.
Trump, he wrote a letter to Governor Brian Kemp announcing an initiative to begin an emergency session to conduct an investigation into the actions undertaken by Willis. Of course, she is the one who had that grand jury indict Trump on 13 counts, questionable counts, I might add, perhaps an abuse of power, I might add. But I want to welcome State Senator Colton Moore to the program. Welcome to the program. I want to.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to ask you. So you're calling for this investigation an emergency legislative session? Is that how it's going to work?
Right. So as a state senator, I have a job to do, and that's to take advantage of my position in the legislature. Well, we know in the presidential system of American government, the legislature has some amazing powers, some amazing checks and balances, the first of which is the power of the purse. My first objective is to defund this district attorney. We have a district attorney who is using my taxpayer dollars, my constituents, Georgians across the state, to take on political persecution, and to the tune of the death penalty. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit around while the former president could potentially be executed in the state of Georgia.
Yeah. How hard of a road do you think that this will be? And by the way, I commend your actions. I think it's necessary, and I think we need more legislators who are willing to stand up and say this is enough. I certainly wish that the federal government, Congress, would follow in your footsteps and finally, having some balls and saying we're going to threaten to defund you. We're actually going to use the powers and the mechanisms that we have to do something about this abuse of power. How hard a road do you think that you will have to get some traction on this in Georgia?
Well, unfortunately, Republicans are asleep at the wheel, and it's going to be pretty difficult if folks don't take advantage of their phones and start calling their senators and their representatives and take action themselves. I talk to my fellow colleagues, and everyone wants to kind of sit around and make a Facebook post or this or that. Well, that's not getting the job done. We have a job to do. We have a legislative authority to oversight judicial officers.
Right. He's got a good point there. It's not just these little black mirrors that you can take some action with. You can actually go out. Best thing to do is find out where your mayor lives and go knock on his door. That gets shit done for me. I live right across the road from my city clerk, so if she doesn't get anything done after I go knock on her door, I go to the mayor's house, and then I get shit done. That's how I get shit done here in my little bitty town. I find a problem, I want it taken care of. Not only that, the both of them, they also know that I am damn annoying, and I will show up day after day after day after day after day until the problem is fixed. Now, the one that I'm currently trying to tackle is a lumber yard that is in my town. And the runoff that's happening to our one of our biggest rivers here in Alabama is the Coosa River. Well, there is a lumber yard that is leaking BPAs into the water, and it starts here. And I have been trying for almost 3-4 months now to scream attention to this, because there was a report on the Coosa River being loaded with BPAs, and that it gets stronger and stronger until it hits the dam here in my town. And that's what I've been trying to do, and trying to find out what they can do, who we go to see first, and everything, because these are dangerous chemicals. They're forever chemicals. We can't get them out. Now, this is the reason for water filtration and whatnot here in my town. And there's other things. But yeah, either in person, these little black mirrors, or write yourself a lovely letter using one of these implements. Don't use a computer, don't use email when you are trying to contact your representative. Do not. For the reason being is that the woman that I talked about earlier, Tori says, clogged up the system in order for us to be able to contact our representatives without it being sent to their spam box. If they have your email address from that woman's fuckery, then what you need to do is start writing handwritten letters with a pen. Not only that, if you make sure that you send it overnight or certified mail, you will get a receipt, and you will know that it will have reached your representative's hands. It might cost a little, but hey, don't we want to get these issues actually taken care of? Just a thought.
Executive officers, now's the time to launch an investigation into her, and if the corruption shows to be true, it's time to impeach her. But first and foremost, we have to defund her.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the governor's comments, his recent comments that there was no voter fraud that took place in Georgia in 2020?
I couldn't be more disappointed. I mean, he puts out the Facebook post, refers everything back to 2020. I mean, let us not forget, it took 19 days to certify this election. And those 18 plus Donald Trump that were indicted, they were just doing what every good American should do, use their First Amendment right and question things they don't believe in. So now we're going to call those false statements and draw up charges and make this thing called RICO appear and potentially lethally inject like political prisoners. This is something you would see in Putin's Russia. This is Gestapo tactics.
Yeah. So we covered on the program the other day the weird coincidence, we'll just call it coincidence, that this identical indictment happened to appear on the Fulton County Courthouse website, identical to what actually was presented, but strangely enough, hours before the grand jury even voted on the indictment. What are your thoughts on that strange coincidence?
Well, to me, obviously it's a strange coincidence, but it's no surprise. I mean, the president of the Georgia Senate, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, he was going to be tied up in this himself, but he was able to prove to the judge that this district attorney had donated campaign funds to his opponent. So that got him removed. But then the prosecutorial counsel wants to submit another prosecutor or special counsel against him. I mean, this is absolutely nonsense. I mean, I'm 29 years old, and I'm not going to live the rest of my life under this type of regime.
Yeah. So DA Willis is attempting to start the trial in March of next year. Again, another coincidence, I think, Senator, that, perhaps there's kind of an important day there coming up, Super Tuesday. What are your thoughts on that? And does your legislature have the ability to make sure that the timing of that isn't so, we'll say again, coincidental?
Yeah, that's why we have to take action now. And think about this. The ACLU reports that about half of the inmates at the Fulton County Jail have yet to be charged with a crime. We got Young Thug, Young Slime. They've been in the court now for a year, and they've yet to pick a jury. This is an absolute train wreck, what's going on in Fulton County. And then this district attorney says she's going to have these folks in the courtroom in 6 months. Like, this is completely politically motivated. It's political persecution. And why my fellow Republicans are sitting around in the shade, I'll never understand.
Yeah. So tell everyone where can they go to find all of their, their state senator, their representatives information in Georgia? And also, where can people across the country go if they maybe want to make their voice heard as well, considering this does have national ramifications, what happens in Georgia?
Absolutely. If you're anywhere outside of the state of Georgia, you can go to my website, coltonmoore.com. That's coltonmoore.com. And you start signing the official petition there. If you're a Georgia resident, pick up your cell phone and call your state senator, call your state representative, and tell them to take action. That's you taking action too. Because if we just sit around on Facebook and Twitter, the algorithms are going to bury our voices deep. It's time to take action.
Yeah. Well, Senator, we appreciate you, and not just being on the program, but appreciate what you're doing, that you're standing up. I know that there are so many Republicans out there, not just in the state of Georgia, but just across the country, that they're just such rhinos, dragging their feet, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to be the one that comes out and says what needs to be said because they're scared of being called, you might be called racist or homophobe or a transphobe or any of the phobes. And we always appreciate someone who stands up for truth and justice and the true American way. So we appreciate you. Will you keep us updated?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
So your thoughts, guys, on what's going on in Georgia and what he's doing?
Yeah, if I was to ask him a question, I would have answered inside the Senate in Georgia, and I think he answered there is no political will. And then also people need to understand whatever you do in the Senate on a state level, you need the backing of the House and vice versa, the House and Senate. And so I commend him. He's got to fight. I would also have asked him if he's been in contact with the Trump campaign, whether there's but if he's not going to get the political support in the Senate, then I don't know that this moves anywhere, unfortunately. You got to push.
Yeah, because he has, so he can do it one of two ways. The governor can call emergency session, which
I can't, I don't see it happening.
Going to do that, or right, exactly, or the representatives will have to be forced to do it, and an emergency session can be called if 3/5 of both the legislative chambers sign onto a letter to demand a review of Willis's actions.
Yeah, I say this in the most amicable way, the most polite way, but these people are going to be held accountable at some point sooner or later for having failed the people they're supposed to be representing, because we haven't seen a person like Donald Trump on the right in 40 years, maybe. The Nixon landslides, the Reagan landslides, those were basically like Americans giving permission to a president to undo all the social decay of the 60s and all these other changes and things like that. And it was never done. And we're not going to have another Donald Trump-like figure, someone who can really energize the right. And by the time that maybe comes around in 10, 20 years from now, probably not going to have a country left. So these people are in these positions of power who are basically trying to contain us instead of represent us. There's no scenario where they just ride off into the sunset. Like, the ship is going down, they're going to go down too.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back with more, but we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. So here at Police TV, there have been a bunch of us who
What? The Biden administration considering plea deals for 9/11 mastermind and 4 co-conspirators that would shield them from death penalty. Wait a minute. Didn't y'all get Bin Laden already? So who are these yazoos that you're sitting here and y'all are going to shield from the death penalty? Huh? Weren't all of the other ones killed in the actual crashes?
So the Associated Press apparently gained possession of a letter that was sent to several families of the victims of the attacks. And the letter provided notice that a plea deal could soon be negotiated. And in the letter, they advised the families that the plea deal could eliminate the possibility of the death penalty with these pretrial agreements. They said, no plea agreement has been finalized and may never be finalized. And it's possible that a pretrial agreement in this case would remove the possibility of any death penalty. So it's really, I don't think that anyone could in good faith make the argument that Joe Biden cares at all about Americans or their safety at this point, because you have a Biden regime who is now talking about going easy on the people who were responsible for 9/11 and the deaths of so many Americans. You have the Biden regime who did nothing in Afghanistan, let that whole thing implode, threw the military to the wolves, and a lot of our allies in Afghanistan to the wolves, didn't care about them. You have a regime who is keeping an open border and allowing all of these strangers, potentially terrorists, by the way, to just waltz right into our country with no oversight. I mean, I don't want to believe that we would have a leader in this country who genuinely is advocating for the destabilizing the country, but I'm really not left with another conclusion other than that.
Yeah, I know it's hard when it's a hard term and a line to take when I say it's treasonous, right? Here's as an immigrant who loves this country, I immigrated to this nation 3 weeks after the planes went into that building. 3 weeks. I walked in the rubble. I walked their footprints. It was insane. I mean, and so everything you just listed off is the record of the men. And it's not distant history like 15 years ago. It's today. Today, as we speak, criminals are crossing the border. Today, as we speak, we're giving notice to appear for MS-13 members in 2030, right, with children in arms. So it is anti-American. At the same time, in the same week, as he's negotiating a potential plea deal for someone who wanted to destroy America, right, he can't say, pray for you. Right. No. You're just reading the evidence, Sarah. I think we're going easy on the man. And I'll say this, I just got to say, there's a whole lot of people responsible for 9/11 that's walking free. Let's just say that too. And so no, this whole thing, we don't negotiate with terrorists. There we go. We're going to negotiate with terrorists. I mean, this says anti-American. We're unrecognizable as a nation at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with the negotiating with terrorists. It's like, we shouldn't do that, but I mean, of course we do that. Why would we not do that? You know, the terrorists did something that benefits the regime, and so of course they're going to negotiate that and, you know, help them out a little bit, because maybe we can't well, no, not on YouTube. All I'll say is this: what happened on September 11th gave the people in charge what they wanted, which was war in the Middle East, justification for that, justification for the construction of a security apparatus that was capable of spying on and targeting American citizens. All of that post 9/11, whether it's NatSec infrastructure or legal infrastructure, has been used to persecute political dissidents, people who are against the Biden regime. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they would return that favor and scratch this guy's back.
Yeah, back when, I mean, it was before Trump was president, but, you know, even after he had taken office, and the left used to constantly say, like, oh, no one in the country, no one in the world is going to take us seriously anymore. We're going to be the laughing stock of the world. Trump's going to be so weak. Everyone's going to be laughing at us. And, you know, you look back at the job he did, and you look back at the fact that Russia wasn't invading Ukraine while Donald Trump was president. You look back at, Donald Trump, the videos that you saw of Donald Trump, like, pushing his way through all of the other world leaders to get to the front, and, you know, everyone like, oh, I can't believe he did that. Well, I mean, you know what? Things were much more peaceful, and we were much better off with Donald Trump at the helm. So as much as they wanted to say, like, oh, no, we're going to be a laughing stock, I didn't see it. I see it now.
We're the laughing stock now.
I see it now.
I'll tell you what, Putin respected him. Putin looked him in the eye when he shook his hand. Okay. Kim Jong-un said, yeah, sure, you can come. Please, can I ride in your limo, Mr. President? Can I ride in the beast? There was ultimate respect around the world, because sometimes you got to push your way through the mucking the crowd to say, we're going to take territory back with the United States of America. And that's not a bullying tactic. That's saying the light has to stay on. The good guys have to be in the front of the line. Now we got a guy that's saying, I can't find the back door to my own house. Take the whole nation.
Right. We'll negotiate with terrorists. We'll let terrorists in. Hell, just walk right in across the border. We'll let you in. It's fine. We don't care about it.
There's a certain type of person who ascends to like the leadership level, someone like Putin or Xi Jinping or Bashar al-Assad. It's like these very, very intelligent, charismatic sociopaths. Like those are like the profiles. And they're not threatened by someone like Joe Biden because they know that he's not actually a political actor. I mean, he's a politician, but he doesn't really have this sort of Machiavellian instinct the way that these guys do. And Trump maybe isn't as sharp in that regard as I would love to believe, but it is true. Like, he is respected by them because they understand that Trump's going to do what Trump wants to do, and Trump wants to be right by the American people. He doesn't have to, play this little role like Biden does or Obama did. He's just like doing what his instincts tell him is correct. And so that's why he has the best foreign policy record of any president in my lifetime, surely.
Well, I think also, there's something to be said for, and maybe the media helped him with this inadvertently. I don't think he meant to, but I think that there is something to be said for a president who, you might think they're a little crazy, and you don't, like, maybe they will do what they threaten to do, right? Like, that, I mean, that keeps other countries on their toes.
Yeah, so that's why I never like the criticism from some of the people against Trump on our side when they say, well, I don't like that Trump hired John Bolton, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, if you look at Trump's record on foreign policy, you wouldn't know that he hired, like, the warhawk neocon John Bolton. And I'm trying to command strength and let people know I'm ready to take it there, whether it's Russia, China. I'm going to hire the...
Yes, yet again, John Bolton comes up into the conversation. How? Gotta love it. But he is a mover and shaker, like I said. He's a rook on one chessboard, and he's a bishop on the other. But he always wanted to be the knight.
The guy who is begging me, like, please let me bomb the entire world.
So, the power, Sarah, is unpredictability.
Exactly. That's exactly
unpredictable.
Yes.
And his record, believe it or not, way before he wanted to be president, when he says, I'm going to Vegas and I'm building a hotel, darn it, he's building the hotel. Right. So his record shows if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Yep. And now you don't know. He says if we cross the border, he's taking folks out. That makes you think he's crazy enough to actually do what he says. He's unpredictable.
Right.
You could script the next 7.5 years of Joe Biden. You could sit there, Sarah, and write a monologue on how Joe's going to react because he's so predictable. He's not a threat. He couldn't. So Trump, that unpredictability, and the fact that if he tells you we're going to strike, he'll do it.
Right. You know what's interesting too, and this is so telling, the way that Trump fits in when he goes to like UFC events. And yeah, he's Trump. He's the president, former president, or whatever. But there's something to be said about the fact that like some world-class fighter will beat a man nearly to death, and the first thing he does is jump the cage. And he wants to shake Donald Trump's hand. There's something to be said about that. Like men who are capable of strength and imposing their will, knowing that and respecting each other. There's a reason that Donald Trump can hang out so easily with like Mike Tyson and these other fighters.
That's why people respected him.
Yeah.
That's for a fact.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about this cartoon that was too gay for Disney, but you're gonna find it.
I'll try this next report, but I'm not sure if it's just going to be cut off, because it just might make me angry.
All right, Netflix released a children's animated movie. This is called Nimona, that features an LGBT agenda that was so, wow, there it is, right there, so blatant that even Disney, which obviously we all know Disney is not what you would call homophobic or transphobic. They're well embracing the LGBT radical ideology, specifically for children, trying to shove it down children's throats, and even Disney was like, yeah, we don't think that we want to do this anymore. So this prominently features LGBT characters and themes. The main characters include 2 former gay lovers who hold hands and kiss, and Nimona, a shape-shifting magical being with implied gender-fluid characteristics. So when you hear...
Well, I actually looked forward to watching Nimona, but now knowing this, I'm not going to watch it. Okay, that's enough. I don't even need to hear the rest of their commentary because it's going to be the exact same as usual. So, yeah, that. That's so disappointing. Carry on. We will have a Vivek Ramaswamy clip along with Jordan B. Peterson, and
Hey,
I
fellow
will wrap it
lobsters,
up
if you've
after
ever
that.
read 12 Rules for Life, have you ever wondered how to talk to your kids about these ideas?
Well, yeah, I've actually read that book.
Twins book talking just about
Oh,
12
cool.
rules, simplified for kids in a fun story.
All right, that's cool.
So I was reading the New York Times, which I do, even though you do that at the risk of your own soul. And there was an article about you recently, and it's pretty scurrilous, which is exactly what I'd expect from the fine folks at the New York Times. But I thought it would be interesting, if you don't mind. I thought I'd hassle you with it a bit and get your response.
My only caveat is I may not have read it yet, so just tell me which one this was.
That's okay. I can bring it on you.
Yeah.
Well, it was published June 27th, and basically, let me walk through the criticisms because I'd like to see how you respond to it. And I think it's reasonable to respond to them. So the first thing. Here's the first claim, for example. Mr. Ramaswamy's enterprise is best known for a spectacular failure. As a 29-year-old with a bold idea and Ivy League connections, he engineered what was at the time the largest initial public offering in the biotech industry's history, only to see the Alzheimer's drug at its center fail 2 years later, and the company's value tanked. But Mr. Ramaswamy made a fortune anyway. He took his first payout in 2015 after stirring investor excitement about his growing pharmaceutical empire. So basically what they're attempting to do is to cast you in the role of someone who produced a lot of hype around a product and raked off a fair bit of money as a consequence. And the next thing they do is also go after your claim to be a scientist. And the way they do that is by pointing out that you have a bachelor's degree in a scientific field, but that you made your name in the world of hedge funds and that you did your graduate work in law. So tell me how to respond to reading that.
So this is a very recent line of attack that seems to be the one that they're trying most recently. There have been many others that have been tried and haven't really stuck either. The fact of the matter is, actually, when I gave my high school commencement address, one of the things that I tried to do is highlight the failures that I've had in my career. Now, the reality is this wasn't even really an unnatural failure. The way the biotech business works, and anybody who has been in the business of ever developing medicine knows that it is a business where you have many failures for a few successes, but the successes make up for the failures. The irony of this particular attack in the New York Times is the business that I started happens to have one of the most successful track records of success for any biotech startup founded in the last couple of decades, easily. Most biotech startups in the first 10 years, if they have one FDA-approved product, that's a home run. 2 is outstanding, and 3, you're in the 99.9th percentile. In my 7 years as CEO, I oversaw the development of 5 medicines that are now FDA-approved today. That was the back of a $9 billion, was now $9 billion public company that's returned $1 billion to shareholders before going to public. That's actually how I built my success and wealth and success. Without those 5 approved medicines, forget about it. There would have been no financial success at the scale that I have achieved today. And I wish to apologize for that. I actually
so let me
review
review
successes and capitalism. Yeah.
Okay, let me review your counterclaims. And I know something about the tech and the biotech world. And I also know that the ratio of failure to success among new enterprises is very, very high. There are far more successes than failures. I also know that most entrepreneurs who do eventually make a fortune generally have a string of something approximating 12 relatively catastrophic failures behind them because it takes a lot of experimentation before you find something that works. So I'm inclined to take your word for it. But your point is that you had a drug, if I understand it correctly, and this is your response to the criticisms, is that you did have a drug that didn't turn out to manifest the promise that you had hoped, but at approximately the same time and in a relatively short period of time, you managed to bring 5 drugs through the FDA approval process, which is a very, very difficult thing to manage. And your claim also is that those successes were what grounded your financial accomplishment. Now, what do you think the New York Times reporters, how would they respond? You know, if they were trying to, if you were steel manning their possible objections, what might the critics say about your success to failure ratio?
I think that if you look at the hard facts, there would be no argument that the success to failure ratio is an outlier in form of success. And these aren't multiple different enterprises. So there's one thing they purposefully get wrong here. My company that I founded, Roy, was a parent company of multiple subsidiaries. Each of those subsidiaries housed different drugs. That way scientists could actually have skin in the game in their own projects, something they don't get in big pharma. So that was the point of building the business this way. And so the whole premise was you set up a portfolio. Some are going to fail, others are going to succeed. For others in the industry, the failure rate is very high. You get to maybe 1 approved drug out of that portfolio, that would be a success.
Oh, hold on just a second. This, everyone, is Panda. Yes, and he likes to lay on the veranda. This is Panda, and he's my special one, you know. He's the sweetest cat I've ever had. As you can see, he has a lump here. It's a benign tumor, but if we mess with it, it'll spread. So he's never had the tumor taken off, and it just grows bigger and bigger, and that's why we call him Lumpy. And as you can see, he's a massive cat. He's much bigger than Teddy, and he's my sweet lovey boy. Yeah. And he only has half a tail too, because one of the tumors showed up right here at the base of his tail, and his tail went dead, and eventually he got an injury, and the injury led to his tail falling off. So he only has a half a tail, and my mom calls him Bobtail because she can never remember what his name is. But he'll go back and forth to my mom's house next door and everything, and she'll give him milk because he's missing half of his teeth now, and he's almost 6, 7 years old. He's getting much older, but yeah, he's our sweet lovey boy in this house. And if you look up on the TV over there, you can see Ajax, and he's just waiting. He's just waiting to bully poor Lumpy. And the dog is in right now, so if you hear click, 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 that's the dog's nails going on the floor. So okay, back to Ramaswamy.
Success. To have gotten 5 is actually an industry-shattering norm. Even my biggest critics in the pharma industry, or people who know something about the industry, and by the way, many people in pharma do not like me because I called a lot of their bluff in the inefficiency of developing drugs and doing it at a fraction of the cost. But even those worst critics in the industry would tell you that this is a off-the-charts level of success. And really, in a period of 7-8 years, building a nearly $10 billion public company with 5 drugs that I worked on that are FDA approved today, one of which is life-saving in kids, another one for prostate cancer, that the rest of the pharma industry had ignored, a batch of which we sold in a $3 billion deal to a larger pharmaceutical company in late 2019, another of which is being marketed by Roivant, the company I founded. This is the stuff of outliers in the biotech industry. And so I'm actually very sympathetic to other entrepreneurs who've had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 failures before they have successful businesses. And I respect them. It so happens I'm actually fortunate to not be in that category, actually. And there's some fortune, but I think some forethought that went into this as well. I've probably been, both at not only age adjusted, though age adjusted as well, but even for a biotech startup built from scratch. I don't mean to be boastful about it, but in response to criticism, if you're grounded in the facts, probably the highest or among the highest success rates of any newly formed biotech company in the last 20 years. And 5 FDA-approved products are the absolute backbone of that. And so in a certain sense, I would say if you're going to go after me, you might want to, there may be other places to look, but that's probably the wrong place to be poking. And one of the things that I actually point to, and I think this is just important to understand, is one of the most greatest disappointments in my career was still, even in the back of that success, that Alzheimer's drug, failing at what felt like striking distance of the goal line. I felt like we were within striking distance of changing history. Every Alzheimer's, 99.7% of Alzheimer's drugs tested before them had failed. And so we were aiming to bend the historical arc of history. And one of the best pieces of advice I would give to any...
There is one thing that I think has been overlooked, is the fluoride in the water. Don't want to go all Alex Jones here, but it's true. Alex was right about the IQs dropping. It was a Harvard study. You might want to find that white paper because there's lots more implications. And I believe, this is just my mere belief, is that when they started putting the fluoride in the water, and we go back in the medical records and data, we're going to see that the huge spike in Alzheimer's dementia, I think it's going to be linked to the fluoride. I mean, it's not only that, there are a lot of other awful things, processed foods and whatnot, that also attribute to Alzheimer's as well. Alzheimer's is mostly because of that sticky plaque that's in your gray matter and everything, and the wrinkles. When that plaque gets in there, it's not like plaque around your teeth. You can't go in and you can't scrape off the plaque. Can't do that. There is a very interesting type of procedure where they will give you a specific drug and they will hang you upside down on one of those incline machines, and the drug rushes to your head, and it's supposed to, it's like once every, I think they said it was a twice a year treatment, or 3 times. It was either 2 or 3 times that you would go and you would take that treatment. They hang you upside down from that lift machine, and they let the medicine run to the brain. It's only like a 10-minute procedure from what I understand, and that there's enormous, incredible successes about this. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if they have that specific doctor that came up with that specific method to be up in the White House giving Joe one of those treatments every 3 or 4 months. Something to look into, right?
Entrepreneur, and I did this as well as one of the pieces of advice I'm glad I got and I followed was be very overabundant in telling people how risky what you're doing really is, actually, right? So I would tell everybody, you guys have a drug that's worked for Alzheimer's. There's a very good chance this one won't either, but it has a reasonable shot. And it so happened that actually ended up being a way of, it turned out, generating more conviction and excitement from others than doing what other, entrepreneurs and startup guys might do, which is laying out all the reasons why something's going to work. Everyone who's watching the field knows you're against the odds. So I actually took the other road of just being abundantly clear and saying that, gosh, we're up against a very big historical track record, but even against that backdrop, here's why this has a decent shot. I thought it had a decent shot. Turned out it did. We turned over the cards. There's also something that's an old trick in the biotech industry is you try to data mine and you try to find some trend and say, okay, we're going to roll it forward, raise more money. We didn't do that. I just reject that model altogether. Honestly said, hey, this has failed, move on to the other projects.
call it what it is. And I think that honesty is actually part of what built the trust for the backers who helped, and the partners, the people, employees who came and worked with the company with a deep, unshakable conviction. I think that honesty is part of what actually achieved it. And now there are medicines for endometriosis, uterine fibroids, prostate cancer, a rare genetic disease in kids, for psoriasis that, yes, I'm proud to have actually been, if I may say it, causally responsible for those drugs being FDA approved and helping thousands of people today. And that's how you generate wealth. That's how you win. And that's capitalism. And we shouldn't apologize for that. We should embrace that. And I think that's something we ought to be proud of rather than ashamed of. We are just days away from the Durban Accords, the greatest launch of defined tonight.
So the miracle, I would say, the miracle that our society in the West is structured so that people can fail and fail and fail and then succeed without having to die as a consequence. I mean, one of the things that struck me as highly improbable from a psychological perspective is that we ever managed to organize both a society and a body of laws that allows people, for example, to declare bankruptcy and start again, and that allows companies to fail without, well, calling, let's say, for the public execution of everyone involved, because that would be more akin to the historical precedent. I mean, it wasn't uncommon in the ancient world if a leader lost a battle that it was incumbent on him to commit suicide. That was still happening in Japan in World War II. You fail, and that means you're useless and you should die. And we've managed in the West, and this is a bloody miracle of capitalism, to set up a legal structure that allows people to take risks without having to put their neck on the line. They still have skin in the game, but it's not a vital organ, let's say.
Totally. And the only advice I would give to entrepreneurs is, while that is true, I actually thankfully did not have to go through that process versus actually advising people, if you are building a business, set yourself up even within the business itself to have enough learnings and room for experimentation and failure that allow you, when you really lift off, to have been strengthened by. So that was the experience I had. That Alzheimer's failure strengthened the existing company of Roivant, the parent company, to be able to have the fortitude and experience to then develop those next 5 years. So that's the only
well, that segues nicely into the last criticism I want to draw from this New York Times article. So they say, Mr. Ramaswamy declined to disclose how much he lost on paper because of the drug's failure. Thanks to the way he structured his biotechnology empire, he did not hold a direct stake in Axovant. His personal stake was through Roivant, allowing Mr. Ramaswamy to weather the storm. QVT, the hedge fund, where Mr. Ramaswamy once worked, had also invested in Roivant, insulating it from much of the fallout. QVT did not respond to a request for comment, but some investors lost real money on Axovant. One large public pension fund, the California State Teachers Retirement System, sold its stake months later when it was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars less than in the days leading up to the disappointing clinical trial news. Okay, so, that's again...
I could go into the details of this, actually. It bores some people, but since the New York Times is doing it, and you asked the question. So there's an element of that reporting that is just false. Actually, outright false. So the narrative they're trying to spin, and maybe this is coming from opposition research from other campaigns, and this is politics of blood sport, so might as well play it if you're going to play it. So what they're saying is that, I had Roivant, there was a subsidiary, the Alzheimer's subsidiary Axovant, that had a failed Alzheimer's drug. Roivant held shares in Axovant. The company, my parent company that I found, Roivant, owned about a majority of Axovant. Could have sold shares of Axovant before its fall. I could have sold shares. It was trading at a high price. I almost felt on the long run principle that was the wrong thing to do. Even as a matter of risk management, a portfolio manager might have told you that was the right thing to do. I felt like that legally is perfectly acceptable, but in terms of the mission of what we're accomplishing, that would have been the wrong thing to do. And so Roivant, nor I, nor anybody else affiliated with me, sold a single share prior to that failure. So nobody, I think, hurt more than I did and Roivant did as a consequence of that failure. And so the fact that the New York Times either reflects deep and I would say negligent lack of knowledge, which I wouldn't put past them because these are presumably political reporters rather than business ones, or I think maybe even more likely an intentional misrepresentation to mislead people into believing something by painting a picture that's just fundamentally false. And so just a hard fact is, could Roivant or I have sold shares of Axovant prior to turning over that card? Yes. Would it have been perfectly legitimate, legal, etc. to do so? Yes. Would it have been arguably even a good decision of short-run risk management to do so? Yes. Did I do it? No. Actually, it was on principle. I said the business was built on business principles. Roivant was to think for the long run. So that would not have been in alignment with the business principles, even though it would have been alignment with perfectly legitimate normal behavior.
Okay, so that's pretty much the entire lineup for today, with the exception of Culture War, including Laura Loomer. I'm going to watch that one later. Unfortunately, I don't think that I have the hard drive space in order to be able to go over this one with you. But I hope that you enjoyed this time going down the rabbit hole with me and watching news, and I hope you are able to get glean something out of my thoughts on news, and that you come join us again when I have another episode. If you cared for my commentary, if you liked it, please like, subscribe, and share so you won't miss an episode, and I will be coming to you again sometime soon. Have a wonderful day, evening, whatever time that you're checking this out, and thanks for watching.